place in the Midwest, 50 miles southeast of Chicago, nestled near the coast of Lake Michigan. It's a place driven by what's coming next, a place where industry is the lifeblood of its community, and its pulse is gritted with sand and steel, fire and smoke. It's a city building its future together, one business, one family, and one home at a time. This is a place for makers, doers, and dreamers. It's where the global marketplace meets hometown values, where Americana isn't just a tradition, it's a way of life. Here, your experience makes the difference. With access to railroads, major waterways, and 8 different highways, this is a place in motion, sending goods, services, and ideas not just across the state, but across the world. And when the work ends, the day's just beginning, with beaches like West Beach in the Indiana Dunes National Park, exciting hiking and biking trails like the Diana of the Dunes Dare or the BMX track, and local treasures and exciting festivals, you'll know you're in more than just a bedroom community. From veterans of foreign wars to hometown heroes, our diversity is our strength, and we forge our future with the same flame as our steel. Oh, there's a place in the Midwest that's calling you home. The best part of Portage is what's next. The best part of Portage is you. There's more for you in Indiana. There's a place in the Midwest, 50 miles.
Hello everyone, my name is Mayor Austin Bonta. Welcome to the City of Portage August City Council meeting. If you could please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilman Parnell, would you mind leading us in a prayer?
Certainly. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity we have to gather here this evening. And Father, we ask for direction of your Holy Spirit. You will guide us as we discuss this evening the city's business. We pray, Father, that you'll clear our hearts and our minds, and that, Lord, we will think clearly. And so we ask for your continued blessing, Father, upon the city of Portage. We thank you for all of our residents. We thank you for our firefighters, our police officers, and all those who serve here in any capacity. We ask for your blessing this evening upon our mayor and our council, as, Lord, we do our best to make decisions that are for the betterment of the city of Portage. This we pray in the name of Jesus our Lord. Amen.
Clerk Treasurer Modesto, would you mind doing the roll call?
Absolutely. Mayor Bonta,
Here.
Member Alvarez,
Here.
Councilperson Weinbach,
Here.
Councilperson Geishurst. Here. Councilperson Parnell,
Here.
Councilperson Vasquez,
Here.
Councilperson Ambler,
Here.
Councilperson Zilli.
Did everyone get a chance to look at the minutes from the last meeting? And do we have a motion to approve or any corrections, questions, things like that?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And I believe it passed. We have communications, correspondence, and announcements from the mayor. I have 3, and we have a couple people here for different things. Let me just start. Yesterday morning, I came in and said hello to an empty desk because I don't have an intern anymore this summer. Connor Phillips is going to college. Connor, you mind standing up? I just want to thank you for everything that you've done this summer for the city. I know you, and I know that this is more than just a resume builder. You've contributed greatly to just the culture of City Hall, to the way that we do things, and I just appreciate all your participation. I'm going to miss you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Can I add something to that?
I suppose you can.
He's been involved with the Youth Council for several years now, and to watch the growth in him, it's been amazing. So I'm anxious to see what's in store for you.
Hear,
Thank
hear.
you.
Thank you. We have a swearing in, so this is also really exciting for me because when I was on the fire merit board, not too long ago, feels forever ago, I met somebody who was I'm in for a promotions test and then a promotions interview. And I remember this is the first time we ever actually met and talked. And I remember saying to James Hazard, another board member, this guy is like going places. And then I became mayor, and very shortly after, I find out that very same guy is going to be our division chief. And so I'm not sure if Chief Crail was going to say any words first, or... Normally, we have the chief come up and announce it. This is just kind of neat for me because, again, I didn't like tell Chief Crail anything. Like, this is all in his judgment, and I think it's good judgment. I was just like, wow, called it. Yeah.
No, I appreciate it. So this year, after 27 years of service, Chris Kender, who has been our Division Chief of Fire Prevention, retired from the fire department. He served in that capacity since 2002. When I came on, it's hard to remove a gentleman that's been in that capacity for so long and staring, being able to see the light at the end of his tunnel. So I maintained Chris in his position with Joe in mind the entire time. He might not have known that, and I might not have relayed that information to him, and at the time he may not have been on board with it, but I kept whittling away at him, and I think with time I won him over. So without further ado, I would like to call up Joe Siegel, our new Division Chief of Fire Prevention.
It's not a rule, just, some people like to have it all themselves. Good to see you. So eventually I'm going to be able to do this like perfectly. I've been swearing people in all this year. So raise your right hand. You'll repeat after me. When I say state your name, say your actual name. Don't be one of those jokesters, and you can choose either swear or affirm. Okay? I state your name.
I, Joseph Michael Siegel,
Do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
and the laws of the United States of America.
and the laws of the United States of America,
The Constitution
the Constitution
and the laws of the state of Indiana.
and the laws of the state of Indiana,
And that I will faithfully
and that I will faithfully
and impartially
and impartially
execute the duties
execute the duties
of my office
of my office
as the Division Chief of Fire Prevention of the City of Portage Fire Department.
as the Division Chief for Prevention for the City of Portage
Fire Department.
Fire Department,
I do it, don't worry. To the best of my ability
to the best of my ability
and according to the law,
and according to the law,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations. He gets to see first how bad my handwriting is, and then everybody else will see later. You'll understand it. Thank you so much. Chief.
Thank you, sir.
You're all welcome to stay. And
I have
actually,
I have one
I'm so
more
sorry.
here.
I got way
Nope.
too excited. Go
You're
ahead.
good, you're good. So with Division Chief Siegel's appointment to the Division Chief position, it opens up subsequent promotions down the line. So we don't have a swearing-in ceremony so much for promotions, but we do consider it to be an honor, and we do have a badging ceremony. So being said, I am honored to announce the promotion of Lieutenant Chris Howell. So we don't have his old badge on him. I told him not to wear it. His wife is going to stab him directly in the chest. Pure disappointment. She didn't do it. Pictures. Gina will take some pictures for you. And with Lieutenant House promotion, there is an engineer promotion. Unfortunately, Todd Laux is not here to be able to accept his promotion. He is working the scene of a drowning right now on Lake Michigan. So keep the family for that victim in your thoughts and prayers, please. Also, just real quick, and I'll bow out, I do have 2 more promotions to announce that they are not here as well. Lieutenant Kevin DeYoung was promoted at the beginning of the year, and Engineer Scott Klein was promoted around March. So, thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
So I don't know if anybody's ever watched a TV show before or read a book, and as you were reading it, you either read about a town was mentioned that you've heard of, or a city was mentioned that you've heard of. I remember going to college in Greencastle, Indiana, which is the rivalry school of my old intern, Connor Phillips, but we'll get to that later. And I was so excited watching a show called The Middle, and it was mentioned. But, you know, I always wait for Portage to be mentioned in things. Those of us who watch Chicago news were always like, when are they going to say Portage? Come on, they got Hobart on there. We're right there, you know? When are we going to be on the map? I'm very excited to have found out this year about a new book that's been published. And we have the author here tonight to come and just say some words about it. He's from our city, Mr. Len Clark. If you'd like to come up, I'm just really excited to let you present. We're not voting on anything. This is just the mayor's correspondence for community.
Thank you, Mayor Bonta, City Council members, citizens of Portage, good evening. I'm Len Clark, and Portage is my hometown. My family moved here in 1967 from East Gary. I was educated at Central Elementary School, Aylesworth Junior High, and Portage High School. I was the first class to go all 3 grades that I still call it the new high school. I left Portage in 1982 to pursue a career in higher education, media, and sports, which took me around the country and the world. But Portage is my hometown, and I relocated back home a couple of years ago. I relocated back to teach at the University of Notre Dame and to cover Notre Dame athletics. I always knew I wanted to do something to promote the city of Portage and to follow my passion of covering Notre Dame athletics. And I had the opportunity this past fall when I dusted off an old manuscript from about 5 years ago and I started adding to it. It culminated in the book called Teddy and the Gipper, A Notre Dame Friendship, which is the story of a boy in 1919 who moves from Chicago to South Bend because his father takes a job at the Studebaker plant. The first person that he meets on campus is the famous George Gipp, and it develops his lifelong connection with the University of Notre Dame. But in the book, he becomes a teacher, and his first job outside of student teaching is to take a job at Portage High School, and it follows his career until his retirement in 1973. The book is being used as a way to promote Portage because on a game day weekend, thousands of people come via the toll road or the interstate or the South Shore or US 6 or US 20. And many of the people just know Portage as a place to get a cup of coffee or to go to the bathroom. I wanted to give them a little history about our city, and maybe they might stay here during a football weekend and enjoy our natural resources and our hospitality. So the book is also being used as a fundraiser for a interesting project with Portage High School and their athletic program, the first of its kind in the state and probably the country. The book retails for $20, but $5 of every book is going to support the Portage Leadership Project. I do have a book signing over at Pet Supplies Plus because another character in the book is a dog called Snacks. And we're going to have a book signing at Pet Supplies Plus on August 24th. And $5 of every book sold will go to support the pets. So I do thank you for the opportunity. And if anybody's interested in talking just about Notre Dame or Portage, well, we can do that then.
Don't make me pound the gavel with that language, mister, but I get the excitement, I do.
But thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you
for
so
your
much.
motion. That's awesome.
You guys are welcome to stay. We got all sorts of stuff going on at the meeting, but if you are not interested, that's okay, but I am glad everyone stayed for the Notre Dame book. I'm so excited. I've read Teddy and the Gipper, and again, I hope it's the first of many good books and articles and things written about Portage. You happen to be sitting next to a journalist there, so thank you. All right. Liz, I know you've got some things for the Clerk Treasurer's report, and I think you got some great news I'm kind of hearing about.
Okay, on July 16th of last month, I have extremely good news. Myself, along with Michelle Walbright and Carrie Belt from my office, along with the mayor and Leanne from the mayor's chief of staff, along with Buzz Crone, who's here tonight, I met with Scott Garrison from the Standards and Poor's agency. Scott Garrison is a bond rating analyst with Standard & Poor's. We were informed within a week that our bond rating was upgraded with a stable outlook. The increase in the bond rating is a reflection of the previous clerk treasurer who was the clerk treasurer. It was an audit done in 2021 when she had just taken office, not too long after she had taken office. We are preparing for the next audit, which is of the 2022 and 2023 books, which we are all anticipating we will get another upgrade because of the work that the previous clerk treasurer has done. Along with passing the gavel on to me, I cannot take credit for it because it was her work that got us the upgrades. We are the clerk treasurer's office is diligently working on the 2025 budget. And I just want to announce that we are switching our payment vendor to Invoice Cloud October 1st of 2024, which should be easier to navigate for our customers. Invoice Cloud will allow our customers to pay by phone and text. It includes also paperless billing. I know some of our customers have complained that they do not want to receive a bill in the mail, so this will allow you to opt out of getting a paper bill. You will also be able to view and print your invoices, change your mailing address, and you will be able to view past payments and your balance updates as soon as you pay your bill. And again, I just want to emphasize we are diligently working on our 2025 budget and hope to have a good year next year.
Thank you so much, Liz. And I will say that was quite an experience beginning that interview process with all of them. They asked some great questions. I think we all were complimented on our answers to make sure that everything was carried through, but it is a great testament to the work that was done previously, and we're going to continue that, and you're doing an amazing job too, just so you know.
Thank you very much.
So I don't know if we have anything from standing committees. Is there any report from a standing committee?
Nothing to add from the ordinance committee this evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So in the interest of time, because it could be a long meeting tonight, I'm going to take the new business and move it up. We're going to put the public hearing and we're going to put the unfinished business further down or up. I guess it all kind of depends on how you look at a piece of paper. But we're going to start with A, tax abatement consideration for Portage Kedzie LLC. Has everybody had the chance to look at that? Is there anyone here to speak on behalf of that? Oh, you guys are welcome to come on up.
Good evening, Mayor Bonta and members of the council. My name is Mike O'Connor. I'm with Holiday Properties, and I'm here with Ryan Kelly, also of Holiday. And we just want to thank you for the opportunity to come in and present. We've got some information about a new building that we're planning at Ameriplex. Holiday Properties and the City of Portage have enjoyed a great partnership, a public-private partnership over the past 24 years. There's been significant development and job creation at Ameriplex at the port. Ryan Kelly has been a part and a leader in creation of Ameriplex from the very beginning. I've been involved at the development for about 12 years, so about half that period of time. Ameriplex has 33 buildings, 3 million square feet, is home to 65 businesses and nearly 4,000 employees. We're proposing a new project on a site next to the Bass Pro Shop, visible from I-94 at Jensen Road and Daniel Burnham Drive. It's a 7.38 acre site. We're planning an 88,500 square foot flex industrial building, similar to several of the other buildings that we've developed in the park. It's a speculative building, no tenants at the moment, but having space available in the market it enables us to attract new businesses to Portage and create space for expansion of existing businesses. It's very similar to the Diversity building that we completed right at the end of the recession, right at the end of of COVID. And that building filled up over 12 months with businesses from Illinois, from Spain, from expansions within the park, within the city of Portage, and it was very successful. The Kedzie building will be very similar to that. We're anticipating that up to 88 jobs will be created, permanent jobs in the Kedzie building. There'll be 100 construction jobs during the construction phase of the shell and the build out of the interiors. With tax abatement, the Kedzie building will still generate $975,000 in new taxes over a 10-year period. After the abatement period that we've identified, we'll have $170,000 of annual tax income to the city of Portage and related tax entities. Currently, the site's a vacant site, 7.38 acres vacant, and it generates about $4,000 annually. So it'll be a huge creation of tax income. Tax abatement has been a real important tool for the city of Portage and for our development to compete and attract businesses to Portage from out of state, from Illinois, from elsewhere. Companies always evaluate their overall costs, and this is an item that helps us compete. We hope you see the benefits of the abatement program, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have, and thank you for your consideration.
Well, thank you very much. Before we move anything, Ed, I just want to ask one thing. For an abatement, is this still considered a first reading, or do abatements work differently where it's one vote?
It's a first reading.
Sure, okay. In mind, if for someone to read it as the ordinance, to be adopted, is it still your recommendation to read the title of the ordinance and that encompasses? We've had a couple of council people say that reading the whole thing might be a little hard without Councilman Zilli here. I hope he's watching the meeting. I wanted to work that in.
Yes, reading the title of the ordinance would be helpful with a recitation that the ordinance has been read before presented.
Councilman Parnell, would you be comfortable reading it for the first reading?
Certainly. Tax abatement consideration for Portage Kedzie LLC. Let the record reflect that the consideration has been read in its entirety.
Great. And then I think unless somebody wants to suspend the rules, normally we wouldn't take action now, right? It would move over to the next meeting. Is that correct, Ed?
Yes, it is. Correct.
So I have just a few questions. So your proposal is to build an empty building and then hope that the tenants will then locate to the building once it's completed? Is that
Yes.
correct?
Work hard to attract tenants. It's better than hope, so we're,
And the purpose of the building, it's still to be determined, or it's
correct.
flex industrial?
It's
Could you
called
define
flex
that?
industrial space. There's parking in the event that a business needs to create office space and that kind of thing. There's ample parking. It's more heavily parked than a pure industrial building would be. It's divisible up to 6 tenants is what we've contemplated. Again, very similar to a number of the buildings that have been developed in the park. There's been some that are single-purpose, single-tenant buildings, but most of them are multi-tenant flex buildings. And having space, right now, there's of the 3 million square feet in the park, there's about 15,000 square feet available. And so it's very limited availability of space. Having space available enables us to attract businesses. Most businesses don't plan far enough ahead to wait for a building to be built for them. So having the space there, we just know there's demand in the market. We're seeing continuing demand in the market. And previous projects were along the same vein, were very successful, leased up over a 12-month period, the Diversity Building next to the Amazon building.
And that leads to my next
Yeah. question.
So in previous examples or previous buildings that have been built, you said in less than a year it was full capacity? Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep, Diversity Building is a great example. International company located there, 2 companies from Illinois located there, a business that within the park expanded there, so it serves a lot of different purposes.
And how
Thank
long
you.
does this tax abatement last?
Pardon me?
How long does this tax abatement last?
It's a 10-year tax abatement. It's declining over 10 years, yep.
And is there a certain industry that you're looking at trying to promote to come into the building? Or is there a certain field that you're trying to promote to have them occupy the space?
The intent of the building is to be very adaptable to any number of uses. Typically, the uses that we see are they're businesses serving industry that's already here. A good example is a company from Spain that we attracted that was the first tenant into the Diversity Building, Fagor Aerosat. They manufacture equipment that's used in the mills, used in the auto industry in Michigan and in Illinois. So having their location here was advantageous to serve all those markets. So that's kind of the typical. Another example is International Entrances. They do every revolving door that you walk through in the city and throughout the Midwest is produced by their company. So this is a location for service and sales for them. They relocated from Illinois. So there's just a variety of uses. There's distribution uses for consumer products. These buildings work well for that. We have depressed docks, grade level docks, so trucking can come in and out and store and then distribute, break down larger loads and then distribute for consumer products. So it's just a variety of potential uses. So to say we're targeting one specific industry, that isn't the case.
How do you plan to market it?
So we market it through real estate websites, and we interact with the brokerage community throughout the upper Midwest. It's kind of my sole responsibility is pursuing leasing activities, and it's what I love to do. And so anybody looking for space, they talk to me, and we make it happen, so.
So what type of leasing is typical for you? What is the term of the leases that you are normally expecting then to have these businesses
Most
enter
desirable
into?
are longer term, 5 to 10-year leases is what we try to promote. We'll do shorter term leases, but we try to get long-term commitments.
Do you have anyone interested right now?
There's definitely activity in the market. We get calls kind of on a daily basis looking for space. You offer a building that's not available until, mid to late 2025. A lot of people say, they can't wait, but there is activity. It is posted. It's being marketed now. And so.
You had stated that it would provide 88 jobs. Is that in the
That's just an
construction?
estimate. One job per 1,000 square feet. It's kind of very similar to what the diversity building has, about 45 employees. And it's a 51,000 square foot building, I think. So that's about but it's hard to predict. People aren't building a lot of office anymore, with kind of the changes that have happened over the last few years, with working virtually and so on. So we're not building a lot of office space. We can. The building that our office is in, right across the street from the diversity, has office space at each end on the corner, so there's glass and light into the building. So we have the opportunity to do it. It's just people aren't doing it as much anymore.
This is, as stated, a first reading, so this will come back in the next council meeting. I guess something I want to make sure is clear and, stated on the record even for the public here. Portage historically, and I think rightfully, has always required, put stipulations on with tax abatements to make sure that companies are using union labor for their work. Do you intend to carry on, with this abatement?
Absolutely.
Very important, because if there's ever a consideration where tax dollars are not coming to be able to directly service the residents, we need to at least make sure that the money stays here and is able to be available for local people who are doing
sure.
skilled work.
And, we're committed to that. And Holiday Properties is the developer. Holiday Construction Group is a sister company. And they're the general contractor who will build the building. And they're signatory for sure with the unions. It's all union labor for sure.
Awesome. Well, I think, unless there's any other questions, we'll see you guys here next month.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. Don't want to, All right.
I was going to tell a few Notre Dame stories, but.
Oh, I mean, you
probably don't have
definitely
time.
can. I mean, we can. So we'll go over to ordinance 24-21, Squirrel Creek subdivision zoning change. Councilwoman Vasquez, would you mind reading that one for us? Just as Ed noted, you can just read the title.
Ordinance number 24-21. Sorry. Ordinance number 24-21, an ordinance of the City of Portage, Indiana, amending Chapter 90, Article 5 of the City of Portage Municipal Code entitled Zoning Map. Let the record reflect the ordinance reading is in its entirety.
So this is the proposed rezoning for Squirrel Creek. So the story there, if you guys remember, it's been a long summer, but around June, word got out that they were looking to do a rezoning of the one street that could still be built on Squirrel Creek. The intention there was to do a multifamily zoning rather than the already zoned for residential. Some people who are on the Plan Commission, you were already in that meeting, Melissa and Victoria. I'm not sure if anybody is here to speak on it. What I will say is that the Plan Commission gave an unfavorable recommendation for it. Not to say that the council doesn't have its own judgment, but having been at the meeting and speaking on behalf of the community there, I definitely would recommend that you guys go with the Plan Commission's recommendation to deny this motion and keep it zoned under its current single-family residential status.
I'll make a motion, excuse me, I'll make a motion denying the zoning ordinance change.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Liz, I always recommend doing this by roll call vote when you're talking a zoning change or things like this, and I know that sometimes we like to do but yeah, thank you.
No problem. Councilman Alvarez.
Yes.
Councilman Weidenbach.
Yes.
Councilman Geisthurst.
Yes.
Councilman Parnell.
Yes.
Councilperson Vasquez.
Yes.
Councilperson Ambler.
Yes.
All right, I don't vote, so I just got to say it sounds like that did not pass. Thank you. So going on to C, ordinance 24-22. Let's see, Councilman Alvarez, would you mind reading that one for us?
Ordinance 24-22, an ordinance amending Section 2-162 of Article 4 of Chapter 2 of the City of Portage Municipal Code by creating the City Advertising and Promotional Gift Fund of the City of Portage, Indiana. Let the record show that that the ordinance has been read in its entirety.
Thank you. So what this is actually a really cool story. So our HR director, Lynn Graylick, and this is one of the things I mentioned either at our last meeting or the meeting before it. One of the things that she's done is she's gone out working with our police and our firefighters. We've got one of the chiefs here. The other is, I think, at the National Night Out, or maybe he's coming in between. But she's been working on helping them do a recruitment video. And it's really cool to see a recruitment video that has our police and firefighters together. It really is like an awesome public safety recruitment video. She also went out and got fundraising done along with the HR intern, Alexandra. They raised $4,500 at least. There might have been more that came in since. However, towards paying for the video. And it's set to be paid. We got the guy, I think, Chief, am I right that there's some that's already been filmed? Or? So the video is coming, and it's going to be pretty exciting. But that said, we found out that the checks written to donate for the video, they cannot yet be cashed. Because when you make a donation, it's got to go into a fund appropriate for that donation. And although we have different funds benefiting our firefighters and our police, there hasn't been one that has that defined purpose that includes something like this promotional video. I want to thank the Clerk Treasurer's office for helping us figure out the best solution to this. And I would say, when it comes to either doing it at this meeting or waiting it till the next, sooner is better, because the sooner we're able to pay for the video, the sooner we'll be able to roll it out.
With that said, Mayor, I make a motion to suspend the rules for this ordinance to be passed.
I second.
If I may, I'd just like to, on second thought, I'd like to read the entire ordinance just so people at home and in the
That's good.
audience can be up to date.
Absolutely.
My apologies, folks. Oh, thank you. It is hereby ordained and established by the Common Council of the City of Portage, Indiana, as follows. Whereas the City of Portage previously established Section 2-162 of Article 4 of Chapter 2, Administration, on December 18th, 2007, for the purposes of establishing suitable fund accounting categories for gifts or donations made to the City of Portage as non-reverting funds, the uses and purposes of which are defined therein. Whereas it has become necessary to create a new non-reverting special fund as a result of donations made from benefactors desiring to promote the City of Portage and employment opportunities arising from the services it provides to its residents and businesses. Now, therefore, it is hereby ordained and established by the Common Council of the City of Portage, Indiana, as follows. A new ordinance supplementing Section 2-162 of Article 4 of Chapter 2, Administration, as presented by Austin Bonta, Mayor to the Common Council of the City of Portage, Porter County, Indiana. Section 1, Amendment. The following gift fund shall be added. City Advertising and Promotional Gift Fund. This fund shall receive and hold all money and other property which shall be received as gifts to promote the city with opportunities arising from the services it provides. Money deposited in the fund may be used for the purposes of promotional and advertising for the city of Portage without further appropriation. Section 2, conflicting ordinances. Any ordinance or provision of any ordinance of the city of Portage in conflict with the provisions of this ordinance is hereby repealed. Section 3, severability. The invalidity of any section, clause, sentence, or provision of this ordinance shall not affect the validity of any other part of this ordinance which can be given effect without such invalid part or parts. And Section 4, effective date. This ordinance shall be in full force and effect from and after its passage and adoption by the Common Council and approval by the Mayor of the City of Portage, Indiana, passed and adopted by the Common Council of the City of Portage, Indiana, the 6th day of August.
Thank you so much.
What are the restrictions on this account?
I believe that Liz or Ed would be able to define that best. And to note that it's not that I have no concern about that, but it is to say, when I came in, we have a number of different accounts with these different types of things and stipulations. So I definitely would prefer for the attorney or for the clerk treasurer to explain what we can and can't do.
Okay.
Okay, this fund is being created because of a promotional video that wanted to be made by basically for hiring, because they've had a hard time hiring police and fire and keeping them. It's also going to, I think the funds that they're going to raise is going to be up and above what the amount of the video is going to cost. So I suggested that we create a fund for that, because in the future, if we want to, if pamphlets want to be made to promote anything going on in the city, stuff like that. That's basically what it's for, advertising and promotion of the city.
Thank you.
And actually, Ed, before you speak, I'll say, if you think for comparison, we had the canine event, recently. We have a canine, fund where people can donate to support the canine team. And again, it's a little hard to define because there is a limit where it's like, well, wait, what is for the canine team and what's not? But within those general spots, it's to promote the city. And in this case, the thing that's brought it is the need to be able to promote employment for our fire and for our police departments. Ed, was there anything that we missed?
Not that I could see. I think Liz did a nice job of explaining the evolution of the ordinance, which did start with the promotional videos and then led to a little broader application. The ordinance itself is based upon similar language in the gift fund section of the Code of Ordinances.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Still don't have a fund for a new Christmas party yet, though. So if anybody in the audience is a city employee who wants the Christmas party back, we still don't have the fund yet, but that might come later, we'll see. Do we have a motion, or more questions, but?
We have to vote on, I think
a
we got a
suspension of the
motion to
rules,
suspend.
But then I think within the,
Did someone second that motion? Okay.
I will second that motion.
so we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. And then do we need another motion then to vote here?
Motion to approve. Second.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. Next up, we have ordinance 24-23. Penny, would you mind reading that one? I love the teamwork on this council. This is such a great group, guys. Thank you.
Ordinance 24-23, an ordinance repealing and replacing sections 14-136, 14-137, and 14-139 of Article 5, Unsafe Buildings, of Chapter 14, Buildings and Building Regulations of the City of Portage Municipal Code. It is hereby ordained and established by the Common Council of the City of Portage as follows. Let it be said that it has been read in its entirety.
Thank you so much. This might be one, and I think it's kind of an interesting precedent to set. I think about when Ferdinand just said that maybe we need to read a little more. I'm going to explain this. If you guys feel the need to read more, I think that I'm very comfortable with that. This is a first reading. We're not asking for this to be passed, today. But what this is, an idea that we're exploring, which has to do with when we deal with unsafe buildings and buildings that need to be condemned. It's no secret that we have, just like other cities in Northwest Indiana, some unsafe buildings that I think just common sense would tell you. I think the average person would think that this building needs to come down. There's a legal process for how we do it. And one of the ways that we're looking at how to make it smoother is taking the entity or the position that actually sends a building to be having a hearing for condemnation, moving that responsibility from the Public Works Department to the Community Development Department. Now, if neither of those terms sound familiar, that's because we usually call the Public Works Department the Building Department, and we usually call the Community Development Department the Planning Department, but those are the official names. I say that because we're having a meeting this Friday, Tom Cherry, Rich Jones, myself, with the Assistant Attorney Steve Scott, to continue to look at this issue. We are a little bit concerned about the need to get more action done sooner when it comes to abandoned buildings, dangerous buildings, which is why I don't normally like to just send something to the council for a first reading that we're not quite sure about, but we'd rather be moving on it, and if we all still agree, after we've had some meetings and studies, we'd like to have it on for the September agenda. And if you don't feel that that's the best way to go, I just wanted to let you know that's kind of the history of how we got here,
I want to say,
If you're comfortable reading the whole, I think that'd be good, yeah.
I'll start from the top. It is hereby ordained and established by the Common Council of the City of Portage, Indiana, as follows. Whereas the City of Portage previously adopted Ordinance 88-20 on May 4th, 1998, for the purpose of assuring that dwellings and other buildings within the City of Portage are suitable for habitation. Whereas, for the purpose of conducting enforcement of the ordinance, it is in the best interest of the City of Portage, Indiana, that revisions are made to the existing ordinance. It has been determined that certain modifications be made in one or more of the following ways referenced below. Be it ordained that the following sections be repealed and replaced with the proposed language. Section 14-136, definitions. The following words, terms, and phrases, when used in this article, shall have the meanings ascribed to them in this section, except where the context clearly indicates a different meaning. Enforcement authority, as defined by IC 36-7-9-2, means the Director of Planning and Community Development of the city, who is hereby invested with all the powers, duties, and privileges set forth in IC 36-7-9-1 through 36-7-9-29. Substantial property interests set forth in IC 36-7-2 is hereby incorporated by reference herein as if copied in full.
Thank you so much, Penny. So just so that I'm able to make sure that nothing was confusing that I said, there's nothing questionable about like the way the ordinance is written. Like there's no actual like legal issue that we're still waiting on. It's really more just as a policy position, we want to make sure that the executive departments agree that this is where we want to go and where we want to do. I say that because from a state statute standpoint, there's no issue with which department is the one with this responsibility. That's just to say that under state law, when the council doesn't designate that to a department, it automatically becomes the mayor. I can tell you I don't want to be the sole guy determining that. I think it's better for it to be in one of our executive departments. So, but you guys could make me or Liz Modesto or the fire chief the person to do it. I don't think any of us want that responsibility. Is that correct, Chief? Correct. Got it. But it is to say, like, this is an idea that we're considering, and we'd like to bring it to you guys for a vote on the September meeting.
I do want to say that since I was in office, prior to that, there was a couple houses that I have reported, holes in the roof and so forth, and it takes forever to get it condemned, and I'm hoping with this, we can speed up the process.
That's our hope too, and so my hope is that we can all come with I don't mean to say that there's any disagreements, it's more of we're just kind of reviewing, making sure that this is really the new process we want to go through,
I think one of the benefits of restructuring it this way, it allows the building commissioner to conduct the inspection, in other words, to gather the facts and then allow the planning director to make the determination whether there should be a violation assessed against the owner. So it creates some sharing of powers rather than it being vested in just one single person.
Ed, is it fair to say a difference between, say, a police officer and a prosecutor? One gathers evidence and sometimes makes an arrest, but then one is the one that determines whether to press the charges?
Excellent analogy.
Well, thank you.
It scares me, some of the abandoned homes, to see youth in there and being harmed, and we can actually help fix that.
Absolutely. It's a big concern for us, too, and we appreciate your guys willing to look into this. Unless there's any other questions, we can move on to the first reading for 24-24. Councilman Parnell, would you mind going again?
Certainly, no problem. Ordinance number 24-24, amending salary ordinance number 23-16V7. Let the record reflect that the ordinance has been read in its entirety.
So we might have invented a new tradition today as far as if you want to read, but as a salary ordinance, we tend to do it, this way, anyway. So as a lot of people in Portage have noticed, either because they saw the announcement on Facebook or they've been to the park, or they've just noticed that there's honestly some pretty amazing things happening in our park right now, watching them come back to life. We have a new park director, and I believe this is her 7th day on the job, technically. And a lot has happened in just the last week. And I could go on and on about what an incredible job that Kelly Smith is doing. She was hired, for those who don't know, she came over from having been the head of the Hobart Public Works Department, which was what we would call our street department. When she came, she had to get approved by the park board. The park board reviewed how the approval process worked. I was very enthusiastically, encouraging them to vote for her. It passed unanimously. But in order for her to essentially do the job, if you will, she's been brought on as a park director rather than a park superintendent. The goal is for her to be able to have the title superintendent by the end of, this time next year. But there's a process to getting that done. From a legal standpoint, there's really nothing wrong with having the term superintendent in the salary ordinance, but Liz and I talked about it, and we feel that it'd be a lot smoother to reflect the job title by changing the salary ordinance. There's no change in pay, no change in benefits, so none of that is changing. It's just a change in the name of the position. This technically doesn't really have to be speedy, but also, it would be smooth to get it done sooner. I think for a payroll standpoint, it'd be a little nicer, right, Liz?
Absolutely.
As a park liaison, I've been impressed in the short time that she's been on staff and her passion for the park. I'm excited.
So again, we're just changing the name, the title. Everything else is staying the same.
Everything else is literally the same. It's just the title.
Okay. Well, with that being said, then I have a motion to suspend the rules for the passing of this ordinance.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I don't vote, sorry.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. So we're going to get over to our public hearing on ordinance 2419, restating the rates and charges for the City of Portage municipal stormwater and sanitation utilities. Ed, do we have to read that for the public hearing to start, similar to how we pass an ordinance?
Yes.
Councilwoman Vasquez, would you mind reading that for us?
Ordinance number 24-19, an ordinance restating rates and charges for the City of Portage municipal stormwater and sanitation utilities and amending rates and charges for the City of Portage municipal wastewater utility. Whereas the Sanitary Board of the City of Portage, Indiana, hereinafter the city has recommended to restate the rates and charges for the municipal stormwater and sanitation utilities, and to increase the rates and charges for the municipal wastewater utility pursuant to resolution number 24-01. And whereas the council elects to restate the previously adopted rates and charges for the city's municipal stormwater and sanitation utilities, and to amend the rates and charges for the city's municipal wastewater utility. And whereas the council has conducted a duly noticed public hearing in accordance with Indiana Code 36-9-23-26 regarding the amended wastewater rates and charges as provided herein for the purpose of hearing concerns regarding the proposed wastewater rates and charges by users of the wastewater utility, owners of property served or to be served by the same, or other interested persons. And now therefore be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Portage, Indiana.
Is that the ending spot? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Had to scroll. Section 1, rates and charges. Rates and charges for the city's municipal wastewater, stormwater, and sanitation utilities are set forth in Appendix A attached hereto and incorporated herein by reference. Section 2, conflicting ordinances. Any ordinance or provisions of any ordinance of the City of Portage in conflict with the provisions of this ordinance is hereby repealed. Section 3, severability. The invalidity of any section, clause, sentence, or provision of this ordinance shall not affect the validity of any other part of this ordinance which can be given effect without such invalid part or parts. Section 4, effective date. This ordinance shall be in full force and effective after its passage, approval by the mayor of the City of Portage, and publication as required by law. Appendix A sets forth effective dates for the amended and restated rates and charges. Phase 1 shall become effective for billings after September 1st, 2024, or as soon as practical by the Portage Utility Billing Department. Phase 2 shall be effective for billings after January 1st, 2025. Phase 3 shall be effective for billings after January 1st, 2026, and Phase 4 shall be effective for billings after January 1st, 2027. Let the record reflect the ordinance has been read in its entirety.
Thank you so much, Victoria. So public hearings, I have some experience with them, even prior to being mayor. That goes back to my days as a plan commission member. I don't think we had to do them on fire merit board, but 6 years on plan commission, and being a vice chair, I got to do that quite a bit. So we're going to take a couple steps, and this might be a little bit of a long process, but at the same time, we'd rather have it long and smooth than anything that's stressful or complicated. This sort of thing can be stressful enough. So there are a couple steps for how this will go. So to start, I'm going to actually come up there, and I might need Z's help. I'll say, Z, help if I need his help from the technology standpoint. I'm going to present what I hope is a pretty short thing. After I present, I'm going to come up and I'm going to invite Tracy Marshall, who's our superintendent of our sanitary plant, to come up, and she's going to come and speak after I do about the needs of our sanitary plant and our sewer system. After Tracy, we're going to have Buzz Crone. Buzz, do you mind raising your hand? Buzz is going to come up after Tracy, and he's going to explain the financial situation as far as how we take what I'll speak about, what Tracy speaks about, and how we got to the financial numbers we have. After that's done, because I want to make sure that people are aware of what's going on, after that, we will then allow people to come up and speak. We're going to try to give everybody 2 minutes. I'm not like a crazy stickler on that, but we want to make sure everyone has their time. I'll have more to say when we get to that point. After everybody speaks and we close the public hearing, then the council members will ask questions to Tracy and to Buzz and Mr. Commenda, anybody else that might be handy for answering questions for the purposes of this matter. That was very long-winded. Did everybody understand what I just said? Yes. Thank you all so much. I'm going to head down there in a second. Turns out my That'll work. You guys don't mind me, I made jokes that we were late at church. I guess it's like the old Latin mass days
Hold on
where
for a
it takes
sec.
away.
Hold on for a sec. Let's see.
Oh, okay.
Let's see if we can get it to flip.
Sure. Technology's great when it works, but, you know. Guess we could have it set
I don't know
up.
if we have some orientation thing on somewhere.
Let me see. Oh, I got it. We'll just do it.
Okay.
Yeah. Where's the plug-in? Over here? This'll work. Just don't whack me on the back of the head no matter what I say, okay, guys? We'll get through this. He's right here?
Yeah.
All right. All right. Whew. How's it going, guys? So for those of you who are on the council, or if you're a clerk treasurer, you've been involved, some of the stuff I'm about to say, it might be preaching to the choir. It might be telling people things they already know. But for anybody who is not familiar with this process, I'd rather go through and review some of that than to put us in a position where some of this stuff is new to anybody. Let's see if this works. I think it will. So, when people think of a city, such as, I guess I should say a city in Indiana, most people picture a city as having some, what you kind of call your basic things. You got your police, you got your fire, you got your street department, your park department, building department. All of that is paid for in what's called the general fund. Now everybody gets to see how bad my handwriting is. General fund is funded from a number of sources. A big part of it comes from our share of the property taxes. When you pay for a fee in the building department to build a deck, that goes to the general fund. When you rent a hall at the park, that goes to the general fund. I'm looking over at Carrie in case I miss anything. That's where that goes. And our general fund, that pays for things like our police, pays for things like fire, pays for things like our building department. And just to put these three as examples, let's say that at the end of the year, let's say the police department has some money left over at the end of the year, but the fire department needs a little bit of help. Maybe the fire department ended up having more overtime than they planned for, or maybe there were more people that had to be covered to become paramedics. Hey, Chief Crail, are you still here? Yes, sir. Does that ever happen? Pardon me? Does it ever happen that like the fire department maybe has more overtime than like we planned for, or stuff like that happens? Annually. Yeah, so with the general fund, this is the budget that's done by the city council. Now, I'm just for space putting those three there. My office is in there, like the mayor, the clerk treasurer's office is in there. And what happens is that you guys set the budget, the council does, and also in the event of either emergencies, change of priorities, new ideas, money can be moved from one department to the other. So at the end of the year, if police have some extra money, the fire department needs some, you guys have the ability to adjust money from one part of the general fund to another. It might happen that you have a situation where the building department also might be able to contribute to something. Maybe we need to move some money from building to planning. Tom Cherry, you'd like that, right? Yes. So maybe there's some way that you guys move the building some money to the planning department. Yikes, that did not come out well. Anyway, but if I scroll down, there are some other funds that we have that are separate from the general fund. So one of them is called the sanitation fund. For our purposes today, I'm just going to write trash because I have found that it gets a little confusing, sanitation versus sanitary. But so I'm going to refer to the sanitation as trash for the purposes of making boxes. We also have stormwater. That's the people who work on our drainage around the city. And then, of course, we have our sanitary, but for the purpose of this presentation, I'm going to just refer to that as sewer, just so that people understand really the difference of it. So I'll write sewer over here. Now, these funds are user-driven funds. So what that means is you pay a trash bill, and it goes to that trash. Oh, I'm sorry, you can't actually see me pointing at things. You'll just have to trust me when I say that I'm pointing at trash. When you pay your trash bill each month, it goes into that fund and it can only be spent there on that department. When you pay your stormwater bill, same thing, it goes to stormwater. It's overseen by the storm board, and they determine how to budget that and spend it through our department. And then with the sewer, you pay your sewer fee, and then that goes to the sanitary board, which then oversees it and handles that department led by, Tracy Marshall. Now, when you think about what those fees are, over the past, how long have I been mayor? 8 months? Something like that? Lots of people have made it clear that they think that what they're paying is a $70 bill. But in actuality, what you're paying is a $20 trash bill. What you're paying is a $13.50 stormwater bill. And then you're paying a 50-cent sewer bill. All of these together equal 70. And so when people talk about how the bill goes up by $1 every year, what it actually is that every year we add 25 cents to trash. We add 25 cents to the stormwater, and then we always add 50 cents to the sewer. Oh, I need a plus sign, sorry. This is how it's been for some time, and so when people think about it going up $1 every year, it's really that each of these is going up 25 cents, 25 cents, 50 cents, adding up to that total dollar amount. Now, when it comes to these separate departments with their separate funds, they've each had financial, let's just say, difficulties, if you will. When we came in as a new council and I came in as a new mayor, we were facing expenses in the sanitation, that is to say trash, that were pretty great. When it came to how much we were spending that was in the red, it was such that the first option we had was to look at an increase in the trash bill, and we were looking at least a $25 increase is what we would have expected. We didn't do that. That's not why we're here tonight. What we did instead is I came in, and on my first day as mayor, very popular thing I did, I ended the free dumpsters at the street department. So it used to be you could come down and anybody with a pass or anybody with a friend who lived in Portage and a pass, you could come in and use those dumpsters for free. But it was free for people. It wasn't free for the taxpayer. Because in actuality, we were spending $120,000 a year on that. We were running trucks twice around the city to make it look like recycling was still going on, when in actuality, nothing had been recycled since 2021. But the cost of running trucks and overtime hours to get that all covered, that was an expense. And then we've also made changes to our bulk pickup fees so that people were no longer just dropping things off at an abandoned house in Portage and having our department pick it up so that we were a free or much cheaper dumpster. Our fee schedule has led to almost no bulk item, petitions at any of our Board of Works meetings. And so we have reduced the expenses in the sanitation department, not perfectly. We still have work to go with cutting costs, reducing things like overtime and cutting expenses, but we've offset the need to do a trash increase this year outside of the scheduled 25-cent increase. Then we've got the stormwater. So stormwater, drainage, when people's backyard floods or when people have it where it rains and there's work that needs to be done so that a street doesn't flood. That's part of what they do. Mr. Commenda will be here later and he can speak to that. We definitely have needs when it comes to stormwater, definitely. But for those who are concerned about raising any fees in regards to this economy and how people are feeling the effects of inflation, we definitely understand that. And so while we made cuts to trash to make it that we didn't have to increase it, stormwater, we've made some adjustments, but for the most part, we're just really being tough and saying we need to stick with the current rate. But that gets us to the sewer fee, or the sanitary. That's what we're actually here about tonight. So we have a number of needs that have to happen in this city, and they have to happen very soon to make sure that our sewer system is upgraded and running well. The reason why I explained the difference between the general fund and these separate funds, there's at least two reasons for that. The first one is because I think that your average resident, and I was the same way up until about 3 or 4 years ago, even as a plan commission member, I wasn't studying this stuff until I got more interested in the local politics. A lot of people think it's all one fund, And so they get confused, understandably so, when questions are asked of, why does this fee have to go up? Why does this fee have to go up? Why not that one? And they're all good questions. And within the general fund, there's a really, I think, interesting discussion. You could call it a debate. You could call it different philosophies of how to handle fees and things within the general fund. We don't control property taxes. The city council cannot increase your property tax. So when your property tax bill goes up and you don't like it, we can direct you to who that is, but it's not the city council. That said, we control things via the city council, such as a building permit fee or a hall rental at the park. I talk about two philosophies. Maybe you guys want to have cheaper hall rentals at the park because you want to make it easier for people in our community to have a more affordable option for a graduation party or a wedding reception than what they'd have to pay if they have to only use a private hall for those sorts of things. A different philosophy, not saying either one's right or wrong, but just that it might change, it could change by department or by thing. Let's use that park example. You guys might say, actually, we want to charge more like the price of a park rental. We want to charge it more like one of those private venues. And you might say, well, why? Well, it could be that you want to bring in enough revenue that the park pays for itself. Not everything in government has to make a profit. We're here for the residents. That said, those are two, I think, worthwhile things to talk about. What things do you want to keep cheaper? Because, oh, sorry, I heard myself and I'm like, wait, oh, got it. In government, local government, that's really, I think, the philosophy when it comes to our general fund. What things are we making cheaper on average because we want to provide that at a more affordable way? And what things are we charging more at its regular price, but because we're expecting a department to be self-sufficient? That, to me, is a really worthwhile discussion another time, or just ongoing as we develop as a mayor and city council in a direction for our city. But when it comes to the user fee-generated funds, such as stormwater, trash, and sewer, we don't have the ability to have the same debate. That's because these things can only be provided for. There are some exceptions. There are grants, there are loans, and we can get into all that. But when we look at it and how we set our fees, we have to, on one hand, we want to be more affordable than going to a private service. I'm not familiar with a private stormwater company, but there are private trash pickup companies. You can go to other cities where Republic does that. I never want that to happen here. I love our people that provide the service for our city. They do a great job. We want to make sure that we're always able to charge our residents less than what they'd be charging if, I don't want to name any companies, I'm not trying to beat them up as companies, but they'd be paying a lot more than $20 a month if we just said, you know what, let's let a private company do it. We have the ability, legally speaking, I would never allow it, it'd be over my dead body, but we have the ability to sell our sewer system to a private company, and they would charge a whole lot more than $36.50. They would make sure that they, do the work to keep it running, but then they're going to charge a whole lot more, and that's why there are communities paying a whole lot more than us. We need to, I believe very much that because we're not profit-driven, we're not actually making a profit, we should not be charging rates so high that it doesn't make sense. We should be charging rates in a responsible way so that we're able to pay for the needs of our trash, our stormwater, and our sewer. That said, there is a point where if we keep it too low, we actually run the risk of our sewer system breaking, and we run the risk of the state pushing us through moratoriums or pushing us through other means towards it needing to either go private or for us to have to not be able to grow as a city. And that's not just like a personal feel. There actually is a point where the state says you have to do something. And so when it comes to where we are now, as noted, the trash fee and the storm water fee are not going up based on outside their regularly scheduled ups. But when it comes to the sewer, that's where we've really taken a hard look. The people who are coming next are going to speak to that hard look and what it means. And what we have found is that the current trajectory, just going up by 50 cents each year, is not going to work for us to be able to make it where we can continue to provide lower cost than other places, and especially privately run. We need to be able to get it to where we know it can work and that we can keep our sewer system running in the future. I don't know if there's any particular questions you guys have for me. I'm open for it. I'm not the greatest public speaker, as you can tell, but I think that this information is important for residents. If that comes back, it comes back. There we go. I think that this is important for residents to see so that they understand the difference in the funds we're talking about and the layout and price that we're talking about and where things come. So if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer, but otherwise I'll come back up by you guys and I'll bring up our next person.
Thank you. I think we're ready to hear.
Sounds good. I'll return Attorney Graham his pen back. And then Tracy, if you don't mind coming up, I'll let you take over. Thank you so much. I don't know if everybody heard that. She said I am a good public speaker, and that was really kind. Thank you.
Hello. So most of you know me. I'm Tracy Marshall. I am the superintendent of Portage Utilities. So I'm just going to start by giving a little history on the plant. So, well, let's start with this. So sewer rates throughout Indiana and the United States have risen in the recent years for a variety of reasons, including, we're going to go through the reasons, and I'm going to explain how this affects our plant. Federal environmental mandates. So basically we have item in EPA, and when a new rule comes down the line, they implement it to us. So that means additional testing for our lab, which raises the cost of supplies. Treatment, so a treatment might be that we have to add a new chemical, that there's a chemical that's needed to pull out the phosphorus out of the system so we don't send phosphorus to Lake Michigan. There's treatment. So now my operators have to do something different in their day that increases cost. And training, to provide our guys additional information on how they can do everything correctly. We've spoke several times about new things that are coming down the line. Right now there's a PFAS. So that's a forever chemical. It's basically in the past, it was in fire suppressants, it was in plastics. They've mandated it to the water company right now. So in about 5 years, it'll be brought down to the sanitary district to have to regulate out PFAS. This is a lot of treatment, a lot of new chemicals, a lot of different reagents that we'll have to use. The second thing that is a reason for sewer rates to increase is the aging infrastructure and need for capital improvements. So this is where I'm going to give you the history of the plant. So our plant was created in 1972. First major upgrade we did was 96, and it lasted till 1998. In that, they fixed what they could that needed to be fixed at that time. In 2010, we did an Army Corps grant, which upgraded pumps and our filter system. So that's just one part of our plant. We have the primaries that come in, that nothing has been done since 1972, except for what we needed to fix, what needs to happen at that time, but no major upgrades. Our primary clarifiers are the same way. Our ditches, our digesters, all of those have not had a major upgrade besides manual, just everyday maintenance to it. In 2017, we did a solids improvement upgrade. We added a gravity belt thickener and a drying pad. In fact, this upgrade has saved us over $17 million because we are now not landfilling. We are bringing it to be land applied. We are also lessening the amount that we're land applying, because with us being able to dry it, it's lighter when it goes out. The gravity belt thickener helps where it thickens the sludge, and we're not sending liquid down the road to the farms. So it's less weight. Every year, we're getting better with the drying pad. We learn how to aerate it better, and with that, we're saving about $10,000 every year. So besides that, those were our last, so this year, we had a major upgrade of the clarifiers. We have 6 clarifiers, 4 of them are being replaced. With that being said, they were 45 years old. A life of a clarifier is 25. So replacing it was needed. We kept it going for as long as we could. So that's one major upgrade we're doing recently. We added solar to save cost, and we're getting a screen. In our primaries that I said nothing's been done, our screens have been since 1972. We're replacing one of them. The third reason for sewer rates is rising costs for operation and maintenance. Our pump costs, so we have 28 pumps in the plant. They have raised 50%. So the pumps are used to bring water into us, to bring water out. It pumps it around the whole entire plant. Without them, at a fail, we would need to discharge to Lake Michigan without treatment. That is something we never want to do. They've never done it, and we don't want to do that. PPE supplies and lab supplies. So lab supplies are test tubes, filters, lab reagents. Those are very costly. They have gone up 30 to 40% yearly. Then we have chemical costs. So we treat with ferrous and other chemicals, and they've nearly doubled. Plant supplies, filters, bags, etc., they're up 40%. Fuel prices, as everyone knows, fuel prices have gone up. Utilities, gas, electricity, and water. Solar is one reason to lessen our utility bills, to take away from the electric. Then we have equipment. We need dump trucks. Our dump truck at this present time was 1989, and it is still operating for us. We have a brown bear that is very specialized equipment that is just used for our drying pad. That one, 1996 was the last purchase. And then the last reason is consumer growth and higher growth. And that being said, the city's getting larger. We know the city's getting larger. Besides the plant, there's the field, and Dan Commenda runs the field. I'll have Dan come up and speak on that in a little bit. But I do know we have over 2,000 miles of sewer pipe throughout the city, and that's increasing every day with planned subdivisions. Most of these are transite or clay pipe. These need to be lined to prevent crumbling and more costly repairs than when they break. Lining hasn't been able to be consistent. Dan will speak on that, I'm sure. We haven't been consistent with it. But besides, what no one thinks about besides our lines is we have manholes that we got to take care of. There are over 3,000 manholes in our city. Lift stations are another thing that's costly. We have to, and Dan knows the years, and he'll give the history on those. But right now, what I need to say most is that the plant, we're operating with what we have, but you hold your breath on some days. When we got a 1.9 inches of rain yesterday morning in an hour time.
it took our flow from 3.2 million gallons to 7. So it's something we worry about. What I don't want to see is a pipe fail in someone's house and their toilet can't flush, their sewer comes up. That we don't want. Basically, what I want to say is if anyone, the plan is open to anyone, any of the elected officials, Portage and Porter County are welcome to come visit my plant. We will give you a tour so that you can see the equipment we're working with. I would be more than happy, any resident who would like to come and see, I'd be more than happy to show you our plant. So, any questions, anything you'd like to ask me?
I'm sure there's going to be a lot, but I think that we're going to bring it in after the public hearing, like the input spot. But I am going to ask Mr. Commenda if he's here, if he's able to come up. There you are. I didn't see you behind my friend Connor. No worries.
Good evening, everyone. Tracy did, sometimes I think she reads my stuff beforehand, so I am going to kind of repeat some of her stuff here. I'm going to basically talk about the two biggest factors. My department delivers all the sewage to the plant. So any lines, lift stations, anything out there, you know, your lateral comes to our line goes to the interceptor goes up to the plant, to Tracy. So that's what my department basically takes care of, along with stormwater too. We also take care of the stormwater pipes and manholes. Our lift stations at this time, we actually have one that was from 1962. We also have 4 others that are over 50 years old. We have 5 others that are 40 years old. We have 11 over 30 years old, and we have several that are over 20. We have quite a few lift stations, and through the dedication of the utility employees, they take very good care of these. There's not too many cars running around that are 50 years old or 60 years old. And that is a testament to the people I have in the utility department. But with that being said, everything fails at one time or another. Last year, we got a bid for one lift station, and it was $750,000. So we pulled that because that's quite a bit of money for, you know, to take out, and I actually didn't have that in my capital line item at that time. So we had to pull that. That's the reason why we're trying to get these SRF funds, is to get some of these lift stations completed. Okay, we have some areas that have like 5 lift stations that go to one lift station. So if that one lift station should fail and something happens to it, that means not just the one neighborhood around that particular lift station will have people backing up. It'd be the other 5 areas too that them lift stations come to this central lift station. So it wouldn't be just one area, it's going to be several areas in the city. Worst case scenario, if one like that did have a big major issue. Again, I got to say my employees are very good at their job and maintaining everything, and hopefully we don't get to that, but everything does over time, it has a lifespan. So we have 7 lift stations that are considered confined space. These are the most dangerous lift stations to work on, and our people have to have gas meters in them, and they have to be hooked to tripods to pull them out if something should happen, okay? And you can only get one man out at a time, because it's a narrow tube that goes down to these lift stations, and you can only pull out one person at a time. So that means if something happens, you gotta pull out the one, then you gotta pull out the other person. If something does go wrong in a confined space, our fire department cannot go down into the confined space area. The rescue team that would respond is a specialized team with very special training for this type of accident, which is not in the city of Portage. And if something did happen, obviously time is always of the essence. Okay, so, and it's just unfortunate, but that's just the way it is. It's just a specialized training that right now our fire department does not have. Okay, the other item, I'm kind of done with the lift stations right now. I want to go on to CIPP. Okay, so the other item we need to do is CIPP. CIPP stands for Cure in Place Pipe. A contractor comes out, inserts a pipe liner inside the pipe, he inflates it, and then he cures it. This is a much cheaper process than if we have to dig, and replacing the pipe is less intrusive. We don't have to dig up the road and then replace the asphalt, replace the stone, replace curb, replace sidewalk. It's just a lot better as far as a product to do for our sanitary. Lining a pipe helps with infiltration. We got a lot of infiltration, and Tracy was talking about the flow, and part of the reason of the flow that jumps up like she was talking about is because we got infiltration through pipe joints, cracked pipes, and et cetera. And when you line these, that takes it takes care of all that. Your pipe, you don't have pipe joints no more, it's one continuous line. And before they go in, they camera it, and any pipes that come in, laterals or anything else, they actually run a little machine down there and they cut them out after it's cured. So the typical day at the plant is, as Tracy was saying, is 3.5 million gallons of sewage that is treated but during heavy rainfall, that jumps up to 10 to 14 million gallons. She talked about Monday, during that rainstorm, we approximately had the 2 inches of rain in 1 hour, and the plant jumped up to 7 million. That's all I&I, infiltration. CIPP would help to lower this number and put less stress on the plant and their employees. Secondly, when you have to dig a pipe, the deeper you go, the more expensive it is. Here's an example of 3 emergency jobs that we have done. One was $71,859. The second was $85,540. And the third was $210,117, for a total of $367,516. This is an average of $122,505. This is only 224 foot of pipe, which is, we got quite a bit more in the city than that. And these were an average depth of 8 foot, okay? So we have some pipes that are 25 foot deep. And that pipe would probably be at least 5 times the amount of the prices that we have at 8 foot. So basically, the average cost to dig is $547 per foot for when you have to dig, which is pretty pricey, okay? And CIPP is around $200 a foot, okay? Now, this is just an estimate. I just kind of looked at some of our we haven't did any CIPP for probably 5 years. I put it in my budget a couple times and it was taken out. But the CIPP is, like I said, it is cheaper to do. And this is just kind of an estimate, because a bigger pipe is more money, smaller pipe is cheaper money. The more you do, the prices usually come down. So, I was just kind of doing an estimate of what I have seen in the past and kind of some of the jobs that I heard of that have gone on in the last year or so. In conclusion, the utility department has identified approximately 8 miles of pipe that needs to be lined or replaced as high priority areas. Pipe segments were chosen based on the known material condition, depth, and location. Priority was given to pipes made of transite, deep insulation, location in remote areas, and those located in difficult areas to access. Well, there are additional pipe segments that need to be lined. The 8 miles of pipe were selected for the phase of a project with the plan to rehabilitate more pipe on an ongoing annual basis in smaller pipe segment groups in the future. We will always strive to find grants and federal aid to always help offset of some of these costs to the utility department and of course, the city of Portage. We actually did the siphon, which is over there by Parker, Bryant Street, right by Stone Avenue. We got a grant for that. It was an 80-20 grant, and we replaced the siphon. We also got another grant that we will be doing this year, hopefully within a month or so, to line from Stone Avenue to Mulberry. Depending on how the bids come in, we got it broke up in segments. So wherever we got a certain amount of money for this project, so wherever that segment stops for the amount of money we have, is where we will stop. So we are always looking for ways to, get help as far as from grants and from the federal government. We have vac trucks. A vac truck right now at this time is $750,000 for one vac truck. We have one from 2007, and then we have 2 others. We are trying to get the CNG grant. Well, we got it, but we won't get them trucks till 2028. So basically, we're going to have, and that's a portion we'll have to pay too for them at that time when we get them trucks. We have 3 trucks that are, we got like 200,000 miles on some of our trucks, on some of our pickups and that. And again, that's, to the hard work of Jamie and George and Matt and the mechanics over at our shop. And, I'm really grateful that I got such great mechanics, because there's not too many cars out there with over 200 and some thousand miles. But these are things that we need to replace. I mean, and I could go on with other things too, but with the time we have, I'll just kind of stop right there. I thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Dan.
Yep.
And I'm going to, Buzz, if you want to come up and set up, and as you're setting up, I'm going to say a couple things. Those who are in the audience were given handouts for the meeting. I'm not sure if everybody got a handout, but I know Leanne was going around passing them out. For those who are watching the meeting from home, I want to make sure you have access to the same paper information that we all have and that people who are here in the audience have. So what I'm reading is a list of Portage Municipal Wastewater Utility Sewer Project Cost Estimates provided by Commonwealth Engineers, Inc. So this is some specific numbers in terms of what we're looking to do cost-wise. That includes the construction costs of pipelining projects coming to $3,622,791. The North Interceptor Project, $11,654,500. The lift station projects, $8,696,000. WWTP projects, $877,000, which gets us to a construction subtotal of $24,850,291, but with a 10% contingency of $2,485,029, it brings to a total construction cost of $27,335,320. The non-construction costs include preliminary design for north side, $615,408, final design for north side, $410,272, bidding and negotiation, $80,000, construction engineering, $504,000, construction inspection, $1,080,000, field investigation and survey, $100,000, wetland delineation, $30,000, O&M manual update UV system, $10,000, record drawings, $30,000, post-construction, $10,000, IDEM permit and other permit applications, $50,000, Financial and legal assistance, $25,000. An erosion control plan, $20,000. Preliminary engineering report amendment, $10,000. Labor standards, $60,000. Build America, Buy America requirements, $20,000. Regulatory assistance, $250,000. Geotechnical investigation, $120,000. Startup assistance, $10,000. Rate consultant, $60,000. Legal counsel, $70,000. Bond counsel, $60,000. General administration, $20,000, bringing a total non-construction cost to $3,664,680, giving a total projected cost estimate of $31 million. Hang on to that $31 million number. I promise it will come back. I also want to list what was handed out to the public about the different lift stations in Portage. Ashland and the date built. So the station for Ashland, 1996. Austin, and yes, that Austin, 2001. Arvilla, 2000. Bel Air, 1993. Brookside, 2023. Brentwood, 1998. Central, 1981. Cardinal, 2008. Capitol, 1962. Damon Run, 2005. Dombey, 1971. Deer Creek, 2023. Evergreen, 1971. Elizabeth, 2004. Fairview, 1985. Four Season, 1987. Hamstrom, 1971. Lakewood, 2000. Lenberg, 1977. Lakefront, 2010. McCool, 1981. Marina Shore, 2001. Morehouse, 1978. Mulberry, 1969. Northside, 2005. O'Hare, 1997. Patricia, 1988. Precoat, 2010. PCH, 2004. Port Air, 1995. Robinwood, 1988. Route 6, 1981. Sandwood, 1989. Southport, 1986. Salt Creek, 1999. Samuelson, 1989. U.S. Steel, 2005. YMCA Tunnel, 1996. And YMCA Storm, 1988. That was a long list. For those who are watching at home, please feel free to rewind, as you need, but it's important that you guys have the same info here. This will also get posted publicly after the meeting so that people can take a look. Buzz, thank you for your time, and feel free to begin.
Thank you, yeah. I was trying to keep up with you on the lift station count. Is it 36 or 37? Does that sound right, Dan? Pardon me? And excellent presentations by Dan and Tracy, laying out the history of the plant and some of the challenges that they face. And I also really enjoyed your summary of the overview of the different buckets that the city has to work out of. And there are pressures on all those buckets, because I know the city has had a history of having to borrow tax anticipation warrants in between tax draws. That's a goal, long-term goal to get out of as well. The $31 million project numbers came from the preliminary engineering report from Commonwealth Engineers. That's about 2 years old now, and we've seen a lot of inflation in construction bids in recent years, and I think Dan alluded to one of those where he had a $750,000 lift station replacement that was estimated at $400,000. And we're unfortunately, with COVID and supply chain issues and so forth, that's really had a tremendous economic impact on the cost of many things. Green energy initiatives are great, but that's driven up fuel costs about 40%, I think, over the last 4 or 5 years. But let's go with I also want to introduce Brandon Barthel, who's one of my associates, who's worked very hard on a lot of these feasibility studies we've been working on since the first of the year. But let's go ahead to the first slide there, just a little bit of rate history. And I think some of this may have been alluded to, but seeing it in black and white will hopefully put in perspective. The current sewer rates were actually enacted back in 2016 with an automatic rate adjustment of the 50 cents per year, or 50 cents per month increase over the last 8 years. And that's been helpful, but 50 cents a month really doesn't cover inflation. I think that it amounts to about $30,000 a year on, your operating budget is about $7 million just for operation and maintenance expenses. So it's helpful, but it's not kept pace with cost increases. So 8 years is quite a long period of time to go in between rate adjustments. In the Indiana Code, they set forth the statutory rate-making formula for municipal sewage utilities, and it indicates that rates shall be sufficient to cover a laundry list of these revenue requirements, which I've enumerated up above here. Doesn't say if you'd like to, it's optional. You shall be sufficient to cover your cash operation and maintenance expenses, debt service on bonds and other indebtedness. Just last December, the city issued about $12.5 million of bonds for primarily projects at the wastewater treatment plant. That used up all the remaining bonding capacity that the current rates could possibly afford. So now we're faced with what's estimated at $31 million. Obviously, we hope it comes in close to that number, but we've factored in about a 20% bidding contingency just based on what experience we've seen in the last 2 or 3 years with construction cost increases. So we do have a little allowance for bidding contingencies factored in. Again, those estimates that were in the preliminary engineering report are a couple of years old. So again, one thing, we could stop projects when we hit a certain number, or we have the ability to fund some additional funding if that's the choice to make. After we get bids, we'll make, those will be calls that the administration will make. But after you issue bonds, you have to fully fund a debt service reserve over the first 5 years that the bonds are outstanding. The bonds that were issued at the end of 2023, that will require about $500,000 a year in funding a debt service reserve. And then the ones that are proposed to be issued will be several $100,000 a year more on top of that. So there's going to be a number of additional requirements for funding up these debt reserve requirements over the first 5 years of the bond issue. And the depreciation and allowance for capital projects, we sort of look at that as a bond coverage ratio, and there's certain minimum coverage ratios that we have to maintain to be funded by SRF, the state revolving fund, that we are in line to receive some below interest rate, below market rate program. We'll have we've got a $20 million commitment on their program funds, which they change the rate every 3 months, but they've hovered, between 2 and 2.5% on those funds. To the extent that our project exceeds that, which we know it's going to be at least 11 million more and possibly 15 million more, they have a pool program that is also a below market rate program, but the rates are closer to market rates, which will be around roughly 4%, is sort of a good planning tool. Now, rates change, the markets change up and down all the time. The stock market crash over the last few days has actually helped the market rates in municipal bonds. People are selling off their stocks and buying bonds, but that can flip-flop quite a bit. We've seen a lot of flip-flopping over the last several years. But the minimum coverage ratio is 125%. That means that after you deduct you take your operating revenues, deduct your cash operating expenses, that net revenue must be at least 125% of your maximum annual debt service requirement. Now, to get a decent bond rating, you need that to be a lot more than that minimum, but we're dealing with SRF right now, so we can get by with that. That's also the parity covenant in your outstanding bonds. It has to be minimum of 125% coverage. To get a really high bond rating, you probably need 180 or 200% coverage. We've got a proposed phase-in program that initially we're projecting about 127% coverage, but then over the next couple of years after the first two phases, it would build up to about 145%. Our rate study process, we start out by just looking at the historical financial information and billing information, looking at trends and fluctuations, looking for recurring versus non-recurring costs. Last year, there was quite a bit of money on engineering expenses that we're hoping are non-recurring going forward after these projects are completed. We get a lot of input from management recommendations. Again, we're anticipating the bonds to be somewhere between 30 and 35 million. We can go up to 37 million if need be. And again, we're looking at the state revolving fund program, which is the best place for us to go for these projects. And then we do the capital project feasibility calculations and projections. So those are things that we've done up to this point. We've had reviews with the city officials, management, the sanitary board, and they've passed resolution to present this now to the city council for a recommendation on establishing rates that will support not just the current operating costs, but the cost of this additional bond issue and the related debt reserve and coverage requirements to make those bonds marketable to SRF. So there's one other additional rate that we've proposed that would affect, we call it FOG charges for fat, oil, and grease monitoring and testing that Tracy's people have to do with any restaurant or food processing facility has to have grease traps, and they need to be monitored to keep the nasty stuff out of the wastewater plant and the lift stations. They can be very troublesome if we don't monitor those going forward. So we're proposing a $20 a month FOG charge for those types of facilities. It won't affect any residential customers. Then we have a four-phase rate plan that we'd like to get phase one implemented as soon as possible. And then phase two kicking in 2025, phase three, 26, and the final phase in 27. If perchance we get very favorable bids, which I'm not real optimistic about that because I've just seen some tremendous variances in estimates that are a couple of 3 years old versus what's happening right now. But there could, if we have some extraordinary bids, maybe we could make a decision at some point to maybe not do the fourth phase. But getting through phase 2 as soon as possible is absolutely necessary to close our deal with state revolving fund on the $30+ million that we know we need for these projects. Let's go ahead to, one other point. We're not raising any of the existing rates for stormwater or trash. We're just codifying them in the ordinance so that we don't just have rates that just automatically go up by a certain amount every year. We want to actually publish the specific rates that are intended to be in place over the next 4 years, and then, reestablish those going forward at the end of the phase-in period. But this schedule shows what last year the city spent about $6.8 million in cash operation and maintenance expenses. Again, we're hopeful that contractual services will decrease to a more routine level, and then we've added some inflationary adjustments for wages, salaries, benefits, and so forth. So we're looking at just under $7 million a year for a cash operating budget. Let's go to the next slide there. Our total picture, where we add in all of the revenue requirements we're factoring into the 4 phases of rates that we're discussing here. Your current wastewater billings last year were about $10.5 million. This is just for wastewater, not storm or trash or anything else, just wastewater. The rate increase, the 50 cents that was all scheduled to increase this year is about $146,000. We factored in some allowance for growth of $100,000. That's sort of an estimate to help, buy down the rate impact, and then other revenue and interest income. As we look through the next 4 years, and we've included some inflationary influences over, annually for the next 3 or 4 years. By the end of 27, we expect the operating cost to be in the neighborhood of $7.7 million. The annual debt service on all the existing and proposed bonds will be about $5.4 million, and we've done some straddling in getting to that number. Some of the existing bonds have already been straddled around, the bonds that were issued in 2012 were straddled around your other bonds. These proposed bonds will be in addition to, it'll bring our total debt payments up to about $5.4 million. We also included a allowance for payments in lieu of taxes, which are made from the utilities to compensate the general fund for property taxes that they would have received had the utilities been privately owned. And this is also necessary to help fund the general budget that the mayor displayed in one of his boxes on his slideshow. That really was...
Yours is quite a bit more impressive layout as a presentation. I just knew that for me to explain mine I needed a little bit more flexibility there. I appreciate that.
That was well done. And then the working capital and debt coverage requirement, which would also fund additional capital projects. It'll fund the new debt service reserve requirements. And it also provides our coverage ratio, which as we get to year 2027, when the final phase kicks in, that should bolster our debt coverage ratio up to about 150%. But initially, getting through phases 1 and 2 that will just produce about 127% debt coverage, which barely gets us to over our 125% minimum coverage ratio to secure our bond deal with SRF. We've proposed that the rate be implemented as soon as possible. We've proposed that the initial phase one go to $49 a month, and that phase two be an additional $4 a month, up to $53 per month. Those two phases will get us through closing with SRF, and they will also look at our projections for beyond that date, but they're going to want to make sure we have a minimum coverage ratio of 125%. This shows pretty much what all the residential ratepayers would be facing over the 4 phases of the rate proposal. Again, stormwater, sanitation, or trash, we're just restating rates that are already approved. We want to just make sure that we have specific rates in the ordinance so everybody knows exactly what those figures are every year, rather than just have a perpetual modest increase. But I think the next slide is probably going to be the most interesting one, because it shows how the city compares with other neighboring communities and other communities throughout the state of Indiana. Obviously, this doesn't include every city or town in Indiana, but we were given some direction to look at Porter County and Lake County. Those are highlighted in the, I don't know if that's orange or magenta or peach, but
Portage is in the green. So
yeah,
you have
Portage is in the green.
No problem.
Right now, today's rate's $36.50. You're way at the bottom. Those are extremely low rates with what we're seeing throughout the state. And we've also flagged a few of the other communities that are facing major wastewater treatment plant expansions and improvements, which includes Cedar Lake, Lowell, and what was the third one?
Crown Point.
Crown Point, thank you. Yeah. Oh, I'm looking at the old one here. Let me pull out yeah, Valparaiso recently did some major rate adjustments, and when they get to their final phase in 28, they're going to be at $61.40 a month for 4,000 gallons is sort of a typical residential usage. You have a flat rate here, which is, for handling residential bills, that's a very efficient way to do it, because most of the costs of facing residential ratepayers is really the cost of having the service available, whether you use it or not. The flow volume differentials, you got a little bit of power, a little bit of chemicals that, fluctuate with the amount of flow. But the big cost is really the cost of the infrastructure, the cost of the treatment plant, and, debt retirement related there too. So, but we've benchmarked these comparisons with other communities. Some of them have flat rates, some of them have metered rates, but we used 4,000 gallons a month in that comparison. So that, I believe, concludes my fixed comments, and I think, I know this is a public hearing, and we want the citizens to be heard. I think
Absolutely.
the mayor is going to have people come up and make their comments. I'm going to stick around, and if there are questions that you want to point toward us, we'll be here to help.
Sure thing. So what I'll start with is with the public hearing. We're going to ask for if you'd like to come up and speak, and You've got the ability to come up and speak in favor or against or neutral, just with questions, whatever you'd like to say. There's a couple points I want to go through just because I know that we want to move in like the smoothest way possible. The first thing is that when you come up, you're welcome to speak, what you need to say. But if you have any questions, please direct your questions to me. You don't have to name me by name, but direct your questions to the chair of the meeting, if you will, and I will write down your question. After the public hearing is over and we close it, I'll take every question that's asked, and I will ask that to either Tracy or Dan or to Buzz or the relevant person. I might ask Liz, but every question that you ask will get an answer. If you realize that somebody who's up there speaking while you're not speaking asks a question that you have as well, I can't stop you from going up and speaking, but my recommendation is if somebody asks your question before you do, don't go up and ask the same question because it will get an answer, I promise you. And that said and done, if somebody says something that matches what you already want to say, again, you're welcome to come up and agree, but it is totally okay to just say I agree with that gentleman or I agree with that lady. Again, you're welcome to say whatever you like. I can't force you anything. These are just recommendations to make a public hearing much smoother. Once we're finished up with everybody coming up to speak, I'll close the public hearing. I'll ask the questions that were asked from the public to the relevant people. After those questions are answered, I'll open it up for the council members to ask their questions. So with that, is there anyone here? Oh, I have to gavel, I'm sorry. Is there anyone here to give comment on the proposal?
My name is Antonio Gutierrez, lifelong Portage resident.
And I apologize, Mr. Gutierrez. If you could please also state your name, your address, and make sure you write that down. That's not just you, that's
my
everybody.
address, I live on Meadow Avenue, but there's some people that don't like me, so I'm not giving out my particular address.
If you could write it down, though.
I will.
Thank you.
The code that the gentleman spoke to earlier about the legislative body establishing just and equitable fees, if anybody would like to look that up themselves, there is a lot of sections to that code. It's Indiana Code Title 36, Local Government 36-9-23-25. My question is, that study, when you come up with flat fees, I'm not a fan of flat rate fees at all whatsoever. I don't think that a single person or a family of two should be paying the same amount of a family of six. I'm just not a fan of flat flat charges. This study, during this study, I asked, in that same code, it also allows the legislative body to come up with how to come up with different rates and how to charge those rates. And I just want to ask, in that study that this company did they also look at all the other ways that the state of Indiana allows a legislative body to come up with how much to charge for sewer rates, such as the amount of water used on the property, the number and size of water outlets on the property, the amount, the strength, or character of the sewage discharge into the sewers, the size of the sewer connections, and whether the property has been or will be required to pay separately or any part of the sewage works. Everybody realizes our city is, needs the work bad, but right now I just don't believe is the time to be putting a rate increase just a couple weeks away on the residents of Portage. I just not in favor of that whatsoever. I know that we need this rate increase, but now is just not the time, and I just ask for a delay until the new year. That's it.
Thank you so much. Is there anybody else who would like to come up and speak? Oh, come on up, sir. It's okay to line up as well. You don't have to wait for me to call, but whatever works best for you guys.
Hi, my name is Robert Dixon. I live on 2177 Jefferson Street, Portage, Indiana. I've been a resident of Portage since 1958. I work for the Portage Utility Department, Field Division. I am the field director. I would like to say my opinion on this is I think that we should have our rates increased. I've been in the utility department for over 25 years for the city of Portage. I've watched a lot of things going on in the last few years. Cost of things are very expensive right now. We've already put 2 or 3 lift stations on hold because we can't afford them, and we have other projects that are going on right now. I'd like to see us be able to extend ourselves out better. The guys that work in the field right now, as Dan would say, have done a heck of a good job. When we've had these rains, we have had taken portable lift stations out and put them on our stations to control the water flow at the stations. We had 0 backups, which is a blessing and a surprise. In 2008, when I was working on the system, we had many backups at that time, and we installed lift station generators, and the cost of these things are getting more and more expensive. The longer we wait, the harder it's going to get to buy these things, and I would like to see us extend ourselves out here and take a really good look. I don't know what the rate should be, but I do think that we should have some kind of rate increase over the next period of time. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to come up and speak?
Michael Cooper, 5455 Clem Road, here in Portage. And I'll be the first one to sign.
The other two, if you guys could please come back and sign. You really do have to sign, okay?
I just wanted to ask, I saw you talked a lot about the residential side. I didn't see anything on the industry side, the commercial side. I wonder, is this increase solely on the backs of the residents, or is there going to be some additional charges that are assessed to the many commercial and industrial people that utilize our wastewater and stormwater?
Thank you very much. Anyone else coming up to speak?
Jeremy Rivas, 6472 Meadow Ridge Avenue. I'll sign it in a minute, but you know, the first reading on this, there was more questions on the tax abatement tonight than there was first reading on the highest rate increase in the history of the city. The crowd here tonight, there's no way the residents know that their utility bill is about ready to go from $70, and I know it includes all 3, to $93.20 in just over 2 years. There's no way. It wasn't on the city website. It wasn't on the city Facebook page. You post about everything. You didn't post about it until a week ago. I looked through the newspapers for the legal advertisement. I didn't see it anywhere. There was no newspapers or articles. There's just no way that the majority of residents or a large portion of residents know what's going on. And I think that we have to do a better job getting it out there so that they can understand what you guys are trying to propose and sell. So, and, you know, it was nice to finally see, you know, some information out there about the projects that are coming out, but I think that this really should be tabled or denied tonight until the residents realize what's going on. I mean, that's a huge increase, the largest in the history of the city. And right away, I mean, the emergency, if there's an emergency, it should have been out there. I mean, to start September 1st, at $12 and I think 50 cents, and then another $4.50, $7, what is it? $17 by January 1st. It's not being properly communicated to the residents for this. I mean, more people knew where the garage sales were this weekend than they know that their bill's about ready to go up that amount. And just the city bonded $12.3 million last year. Was that part of that whole list that, you know, Commonwealth had? Did that subtract from that list of projects? The city just bonded on that. So, you know, did that cut off the $12.3 million? Were there separate projects? Were those, you know, just other things? But I also came across a Baker Tilly study that I'll read real fast that said, this was put out last year. Looks like October 17, 2023. Based on the current assumption as provided herein and the estimated unrestricted cash reserve balances per table 9 above, for the next 5 years, it appears the present rates and charges will be adequate to operate the sewage works, make debt payments, and reinvest in the system via capital improvement spending. I went on Gateway today and got the balances at the beginning of the year, and looks like, well, stormwater has 2.6 million in reserves, and looks like sewage utility capital has $3.5 million, which would kind of speak to what Baker Tilly was saying. And plus you have a 50-cent increase every year that nobody votes on, it just automatically goes in there. So I also found that, I know there's comparisons of rates, but I looked at the statewide, Baker Tilly had a statewide rate for stormwater and sewer. And it looks like the stormwater is like over $7 higher than the state average. And it does look like maybe sewer's a little bit lower. And your stormwater goes up 25 cents a year. You guys are over $7.50 higher than the state average for stormwater. If there's serious needs out there that you guys are saying, maybe shift those increases, stop increases on stormwater for a little while if you're $7.50 higher, and shift those automatic increases, and not dive into the pockets of the taxpayers so drastically, right away. And then just the first time I saw that Commonwealth thing, I don't know what the $11 million project up north is. It seems like a lot of projects. I mean, if these are real projects and you get out to the taxpayer, could this be phased in? As you look at, maybe 4 phases of all this instead of just all at once. It's a huge increase right away. I don't think the taxpayer, knows what's going on out there right now. I talked to a few people. They had no clue. I said, well, I guess I will find out when I see my next bill. This is the largest increase in the history of this city. There's just no way, looking in this crowd, that people understand. To me, I would say you vote it down tonight and start all over. Make sure that people know. Put it on the website. Put it out there. Sell what needs to be done properly. Look at other avenues, like maybe shifting the 25 cents, from stormwater for a couple years over to see if that will get it there. This is just a huge increase, and to be felt all at once. So I just ask you to vote it down tonight and start over.
Well, thank you for your comments. Anybody else like to come up and speak? I'll ask a total of 3 times. Is there anyone else to come up and speak? Is there anyone else to come up and speak? Not hearing, I'm going to close the public hearing. And I'll begin by asking some questions. I guess to start, I think one question or statement was directed at me when it comes to social media and things like that. You can sign that at the end, Tody, if you want.
I gotta go, so.
Oh, okay,
I
that
gotta
works
drive
too.
down to
Thank you.
Indianapolis.
When it comes to getting information out to the public, you want to be really careful when you're dealing with something like a rate increase. This is something that's been talked about in our public meetings, including our meetings that are on video. I've had people who have, come out and reached out about it, even just at the garage sales that were referenced that happened over the weekend at Market on the Square. This is something being talked about, but it has been talked about lightly. And I'm not denying that it's been talked about lightly in a public setting because the need for a rate increase has been talked about openly for some time. What hasn't been talked about up to tonight with this public hearing is the full information. It's really important that things are all brought out at the same time so that you're not having just a mayor advocating for something in a way that, quite frankly, I don't have the technical know-how of Tracy or Dan or Buzz to always give accurate information. I want to do my best. I've been looking through all this, but we also want to make sure that information like this comes out in a public fashion and in a complete fashion. And that's what's happened here tonight with the public hearing. I don't know if anyone here expects it to pass tonight, but I definitely know that the need for a rate increase is there, and we know that the information that's been done by our consultant is trustworthy. If I could start working a bit backwards, Mr. Crone or maybe Tracy, could you reference the Baker Tilly study and what that was about, the one that was referenced towards the end there? Looks like Tracy might come up too.
Yeah, I'm not sure I had that particular Baker Tilly study, but I did have their study that they filed for the last SRF program. And that basically used up the city's remaining, the $12.5 million bond issue that was done for primarily projects at the treatment plant that needed to be done. First of all, they're different projects than the ones we're proposing in this Phase 2, which was all part of the same preliminary engineering report filed with SRF. And getting back to that gentleman's comments, I think he left already, but I was going to talk a little bit about the flat rate issue, but if
Yeah,
you
well,
want.
That'll be
let me
part of mine.
finish.
I'm working backwards from the questions.
Yeah. Let's go with the Baker Tilly. So that study was done, and it was basically on the 12.5 million that we took to do the clarifiers. As everyone knows, the clarifiers need to be done. We held our breath every time it rained. If we did not replace those clarifiers, we might not have been flushing toilets. It was needed. It was a needed project. At that time, we did not need to raise rates because we had enough coverage for it. So you can look up things too. I did the same thing. I got a Baker Tilly report from July 2023 for the whole state of Indiana. Sewer rates average $78 in the state of Indiana for connections over 2,000, which we have over 2,000 connections. We're asking for 58 over 4 years. We're still below average. To me, we're not asking for a lot.
So Tracy, just to clarify, the Baker Tilly study that was referenced, that was about a completed project, and it said that in order to complete that project, we didn't need to raise rates
Correct.
for that.
Correct.
So to the other question about projects already completed, these numbers that we've shown and like the numbers I've read, does that include those completed projects, or are those all upcoming projects?
Those are upcoming projects.
Those are all upcoming projects. I think I got that part
Ours
then.
will be completed at the end of 2025, and it's with the 12.5 million.
And Tracy, can you elaborate on what Buzz said about the current bonding power being, I'm not sure if the word is depleted, or it's exhausted? What does that mean in layman's terms?
So basically, that's saying that, good example, Mayor, you've used this quite often. So if you're want to buy a house, and you go to the bank, and you say, I want to buy this house, and the banker says, okay, do you have a job? And you say, no, don't have a job right now. Or this is all I make. And they say, well, in the next 4 years, can you make more money? Can you make more money in the next 4 years? Can you get a job? If you say no, are you getting that loan? Are you getting that house? You're not. That's basically the same thing SRF is saying to us. You need to take care of your plant. You need to take care of your lines. You don't take care of your sewer, we're not going to help you guys no more. We're not going to put this money forward for you. Is that better, or do I need to explain it
that's a
any?
really clear example. And speaking of the loans, when we talk about SRF, that's the state revolving fund. I want to be careful not to take up too much time, but I think that it's relevant to some of the questions I asked, especially towards the end. So when I went to Washington, D.C. with mayors from around the Midwest, the Great Lakes Cities Initiative, I was actually, I think, the mayor of either the smallest or second smallest city on the trip. I was in there with the mayor of Muskegon and with Sheboygan and with Flint, and I think everyone has heard of Flint, and I made a really good friend out of their mayor. And part of this trip lobbying members of Congress was about them pressing the fact that it's very difficult to understand the process and successfully get money from SRF, the state revolving fund. It was a little bit weird for me, and if Frank Mervan comes, I think he's scheduled to come later this month, we might be able to tell the story together. When we got to his office, they said that, and he kind of looked at me, and I kind of looked at him and said, we're gonna figure this out, because we've been in Northwest Indiana, and for the city of Portage, I think very effective in getting SRF funding. And I want to speak to what we now qualify for with SRF, and I think that that's a relevant piece here. Is that correct?
Correct, very much so. Buzz, would you like to talk more on that? Or?
I was just going to say, when we talk about the bonding capacity being exhausted, that gets back to that 125% debt coverage ratio. That was exhausted with the last bond issue, and for another $30 to $35 million of funding, we've got to be able to show that our projected coverage ratios exceed that 125% minimum.
So to use that comparison, it's like you go to the bank, you get a loan, but if your income's not going up, speaking as the city, when it comes to income, there comes a point where you come to the bank, they can't loan you any more money. Is that right? So Tracy, I know that a number of cities requested or applied for SRF. How much did we receive in SRF?
So we are receiving 31 million in this new SRF. That being said, there's different funding. So if your project, they rate you. And if they feel the need, that the project is the need, because everyone goes there, all the cities around here go here asking. I went to a financial meeting with SRF and all the different cities from around here in April, and everyone was going through talking about their projects, what their project needed, all this stuff. And there were from every city, Michigan City, there was Crown Point, there was Valparaiso. And by the end, you have to have everything turned in April 1st. They rate your projects. So there's different things that they rate. They'll give you a list of things, but you got to hit certain marks. And we ranked 7th. 7th we ranked out of all of them.
Do you mean all in Northwest Indiana or all of Indiana?
All of Indiana, the whole state, So we ranked 7th. They funded in their funding range the first 6. Well, one dropped out, so we moved to 6. So that means the first 25 million is under the funded range. So that's a very low interest rate. It's what SRF, Buzz can probably speak to what it exactly is. The rest of that then would go into their pool loan, the rest of the 31. So in that being said, it's still cheaper than if we went out on open market to try to get something like this.
So essentially, what we've got right now is we have $31 million that the city of Portage has, I would say, earned when you think about the work that goes into applying for SRF. And I know that there are cities, I won't get into it, that are devastated right now because they're not getting any funding from SRF and they need it.
Yes.
And those cities are all raising their rates, as well. And so they're dealing with a rate increase, but without any coming in. In our case, if the state average is $78 now at this moment, what we're talking about is a phase plan to get to 58.2, I believe, in 4 years, at which time that would mean that we would be $20 less than the average monthly bill in Indiana at now. But with everyone else raising their amounts, of course, we're still going to be well under the average by then. I don't say that because of a sense of other people are doing it, we should too. They've got different needs, we have different needs. I say it in a sense of, as a city of Portage, we've always prioritized being able to charge the most affordable rates that we can while still being able to responsibly take care of the plant. Is that the best way to say it?
Yes, that is correct. And for the one comment that was, could we phase these projects in? We're not guaranteed SRF next year. We're not guaranteed it. We are right now.
This is to allow us to, as you call it, the coverage. So Buzz, when you talk about the bond coverage, it's basically the ability to say that the money we have coming in can cover what we need to be able to pay our loans back. Is that the best way to say it?
Yes, you have to have, and you need that coverage to do other things. You need that bond coverage to fund the debt reserve requirements that are coming up and to do pay-go projects, because there's always going to be things that break in the utilities. You can't afford not to fix them. You can't say, well, we don't have that in our budget. I mean, a lift station, that example Dan gave about 5 lift stations feeding into one primary lift station. If that primary goes out, you might be shutting off 5, 10 subdivisions that all use those secondary lift stations. So it's really critical to keep those going. And yeah, the timing of the increases was one, the one gentleman that I wish he would have stuck around, because he asked questions about the size of the connections, the strength of the connections, all that. And
well, we can jump to that, but actually before we do, if I could ask about the question about the industrial rates and what are they under this proposal. I know we've looked visually at the residential, but could you describe what this does from the industrial? I know we've referenced it a bit.
Yes, so it's the same way. They're all going up across the board because it's different pipe sizes. It's in that list also. Besides that, we spoke of adding a fog fee to the food producers, anyone who makes oil and grease, because that costs the plant, and there's already an ordinance for that, but it was hard to collect that money. They wouldn't, if they got a bill for $50, they weren't going to pay it. It wasn't substantial to them enough. So by putting it with their monthly bills, they will be paying it with their monthly bill. So we're to get that. As far as the industries, like we said, each of them are going up. We also look at other things with the industries. I also do the pretreatment, which we look at all the permanent industries and see how much they need to go up, how much they have increases. Another question of his was the strength. Do we look at the strength of the waste? We have surcharges. So if an industry reports to me, they report to me monthly. If they report to me that they had a CBOD that was above 300, they're getting a surcharge. There's an amount that's a surcharge for that. If their phosphorus is higher than the 5, they're getting a surcharge. So we are charging for higher strength waste to our industries. We're not passing that price along to anyone.
But everybody's paying the same percentage increase in each of those phases.
So that's where I think we get to the question about, from Mr. Gutierrez, about flat rate versus other types of rates. Now, Buzz, you had already referenced why you think a flat rate is the best, and it's tough because on a personal level, I think I agree too, but I want to be careful separating personal preference versus what might be considered professional or best, for our clerk treasurer's office, best for the utilities department. But if you could kind of explain how that's assessed.
Yeah. First of all, since you don't have your own water utility, you were having to pay, I think it was Indiana American Water, a significant amount of money every month just to get these metered water readings. We still do that for the large commercial and industrial customers. So we are metering those and measuring the strength and so forth. But for a residential customer, you have the obligation of providing a minimum of 310 gallons per day of capacity every time you hook on a house, regardless of whether they use that or not. And the cost, the strength of residential flows is the same. It doesn't vary like an industrial surcharge requirement. But the difference, and I did touch on this when we went through the operating costs, the only things that really vary significantly with flow, other than the size of your connection, having the ability to put bigger peak flows into the system, is power and chemicals. All the other costs are really fixed costs, and a flat rate is a fair and just and equitable means of addressing a residential rate class.
I could give personal opinions, but I want to be careful not to throw that in, during this part with the question, spot. I believe we got things covered as far as the Baker Tilly, as far as the Commonwealth estimates, as far as the industrial rate, and as far as the flat rate. I think the question that I would have, I guess it was referenced a question of like stormwater and like whether that could be moved. I think another way to ask that or to work that part in would be this. I understand that you guys, as the consulting, company, your guys' job is to figure out financially what the city needs and by when, and the most efficient way, to do that. Quite frankly, if everybody was just okay with paying any increase, and I'm not claiming anybody is, you guys are just recommending, I believe, the smoothest way to get there and the most fiscally, efficient way. I know that ahead of this meeting, I had asked if there were any alternative ways that we could go as far as phasing in. I believe you mentioned that what's extremely important is getting to phase 2 at that 53 for us to be able to catch up with is that correct?
Yes. Well, like Tracy mentioned, if we don't close on this bond issue before July 1st of 2025, we'll lose our spot. Right now, we have a minimum commitment of 31 million, and if bids come in high, they'll fund the rest of that through their pool program. But if we don't take advantage of it, we'll lose that obligation if we don't close. We're planning to close the first quarter of '25, which means that we want to be at that Phase 2 amount by, the first quarter of next year. Now, we could modify Phase 1 as long as we get to Phase 2 in January.
Buzz, is it fair to say that what was proposed in Phase 1, which is a $12.5 increase, was that kind of like almost like ripping a Band-Aid off fast, like every mom, teaches you to do? Like, was that kind of the idea? Or is there a financial end of how much revenue needs to come in, if that makes sense, the question? I apologize to every mom who's ever had to rip a Band-Aid off. It's just the quickest example I could think of.
The one gentleman thought that $3.5 million we should spend that down before. That's not a big reserve. You've already got an investment in your plant of about $90 million before we do this project. That's a tremendous responsibility. A $3.5 million reserve account is a drop in the bucket for a size, all the assets that you have to manage right now. And with this other 31, you'll be at about $120 million of, original cost plant investment. And so we think.
So let me ask maybe this way, just to continue kind of with that spot there. I understand that Mr. Gutierrez, when he was here, and I happen to know him enough that I just know his name. It's easy to say the guy you're referencing who left, and you wish he'd stayed. And I'm sure he'll watch this later, so he'll find you, and he'd be happy to talk to you, I'm sure. But
that's fine.
When he said that he wanted to wait all the way till January, I think that one of the things that I see as a potential concern with that would be, quite frankly, no matter how hard we try, we put things on Facebook, and we put things on the city website, we send out mailers. There's always going to be people who don't know until they get their bill. And so one way to not give them a crazy sticker shock is to phase it in such a way that they see an increase that's not too punishing, so that way if they are concerned about it, they can call in, gets more information out, but then we still hit that Phase 2 spot. Is that correct?
Yes.
What do you recommend, or do you have a recommendation for a different phase between now and January?
Yeah, we talked about this earlier today, leading up to the meeting tonight, and that there was some thought that maybe being a little softer on the Phase 1, since Phase 2 is coming up, in 4 months right after our proposed Phase 1, that maybe splitting that half and half, between, instead of the $12 increase, do an $8.25 twice. Once in Phase 1, and then that would get us still to the $53 level in Phase 2, and I think that's fine. But we need to be at that Phase 2 amount in the first quarter of '25.
Thank you. I'm going to turn some things over to questions from the council. No.
I have a question, Tracy.
Actually, sure. Was something said about the publication?
I just want to address it.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
As far as a public notice was done, we did a public notice, my office did, and Michelle's back there in the back, she can attest to it. We did one on July 15th of 2024. I have the Tribune, which is called the Chicago Tribune, but it's the local Tribune, that published it in the paper. I have the article where it published it. Notice to the public for the hearing of the proposed amendment of sewage works rates and charges for the city of Portage, Indiana. That was published in the paper on July 15th, and then I have another one that was published on Monday, July 22nd, the exact same publication. I did want to address that because we are doing our due diligence in the city clerk's treasurer's office to make sure that we are abiding by the laws and publication notices that we have been told we had to adopt.
Thank you, Liz. Are there questions from the council?
I have a crazy question for the fact that I've had numerous people from my district, if you can explain for some of them, complaining, why are we doing this when I have all this flooding on my street, yada, yada. Can you explain the difference of what it is that we're doing?
So basically, the difference is that's stormwater, and we're sanitary, we're the sewer. So there's stormwater, it comes from the rain and everything, and it floods their yards. There are no storm sewers there, we understand that. Their storm sewer rate they're getting is for their use of the community storm sewers. And hopefully, one day we get storm sewers in the west side. That being said, we've also contacted a lot of them to try to get their sub pumps taken off line, because a lot of them, their correction for it is pumping their water to the sewer, which is illegal. So we've talked a lot, we've done a lot of education, we've been out in the community addressing that, because that would stop the texting of a lot of the sewer when it rains. But there is also I&I in that area, because there's, which Dan talked about, which is the infiltration. So it's the rainwater seeping in through the pipes, and that could be caused by roots or anything else cracking the infrastructure. And that comes to our plant. So if we're able to line the pipes, that will lessen the amount of water coming to us. It's not going to stop their yards from flooding, by no means.
Thank you.
I have a couple comments and a question. First off, just as a point of information, with these rate increases, potentially, senior citizens still have the ability to have their senior citizen discount on their bill, correct?
Correct, yes.
And also, there is an option, if a resident so chooses, to pay their entire year and get a 20% discount as well, correct?
How much is it? It's 10%?
10%.
It's 10%,
Okay,
yes.
10%.
So if you, yeah, so 10%.
Okay, 10%. Now, is that a calendar year from January if we have new residents come in, or is that if they come in August or September, it's a rolling calendar for that discount?
Michelle can answer. She works for the Clerk Treasurer's office, Michelle does, so she'll know it better.
Michelle, I apologize if you didn't know you'd be speaking at this meeting.
I warned her.
Oh, good.
The senior citizen, veteran, and disabled discount is only on the trash, has nothing to do with sanitary or storm. If you pay your bill by the end of January, you get a 10% discount on the whole bill for the year. It's only offered through January. Doesn't matter if you come in July, it's only offered through January, because that's the way it was written in the ordinance.
So then they would wait until the following January in order to take advantage of that
You would have to,
discount?
yes.
Okay.
Unless
So
you want to
even by
rewrite the
reducing
ordinance.
it, even by reducing it, the 10% on the trash, it still overall will reduce the entire bill then?
Yes. Yeah, the actual senior, veteran, and disabled discount is only
Oh, so
on-
veterans also can take
Yes,
advantage of
veterans
that
also.
too?
And you can only take one of them, though, so it's just the $3.
So also, as a point of clarification, must you be the homeowner on the mortgage in order to get that 10%? Or can a husband who is not on the mortgage get that 10% if the home is in the wife's name, as an example?
Originally, it needed to be the homeowner, but you just need to be the person that the bill goes to now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. Other questions?
I have a question. The proposed upgrades that are needed, right? Very numerous, many upgrades that are needed. If this rate increase were to take effect, would all of those upgrades be in fact funded? Or once this is phased in, would we then surprise taxpayers, we need to increase it again because it turns out we didn't have enough to fulfill all of our needs in 2024?
Okay, so what we project at the projected time, yes, it would be enough for what's right now. But That being said, things come up. Anything can happen at any time. It could happen to something that we just newly fix. So I'm not saying that there wouldn't be another, but if we look at it as a whole and we take, because we do have capital that we can use on that. So we, basically in my department, I take the asset management that we did in 2022, and it breaks everything down by how many years, what needs to be replaced next, what's in dire need. And besides what's on our list that's going to be done, funded, we will find other grants for them. I also go and use some of the capital. If we have operating supplies left, I can use that to fix one of those, to bring them back down. There are other avenues that we're not always asking. Army Corps grants, we are applying for different stuff all the time. Energy savings, we're going to be now saving energy once we get the solar up and running, about 40%. That can go back into a capital project. So that way I have something else in capital that we can fix. We might line some more pipes. We are also getting a credit for doing the solar, an IRA credit. We're going back, we're taking that right back into it and lining some more pipes so that we are helping the facility. If we get the outside done, as far as the outside of the plant, it's going to make the plant better because we won't be getting so much water. If we can fix that and get the water to me, my guys can treat it. You know, it's just an emergency if something happens in the plant then. But I can't guarantee that, but I would say the best picture for that would to do a 20-year picture, take the plant, our asset management, look at a 20-year thing, come up with other projects we might want to do to keep something from breaking down in 10, 15, 20 years. But it's more of a planning than anything right now.
Excuse me. Is there in fact a plan, or is it just kind of a, we'll see what comes up as the time goes?
There's a plan now.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Penny, do you have a question?
I do. Mr. Crone, if I could address this to you. This is in regards to Mr. Gutierrez's question about flat rate versus basically personal use rate, like based on how many people live in the house or how much water is actually used. And I think, Tracy, you might have mentioned something, one of you mentioned something about the cost of the chemicals used to treat the wastewater being a major component of that cost, so that it wouldn't really change. I'm asking if my thinking is correct here. Is it true that the cost of the chemicals to treat the wastewater is the majority of the cost that we are paying, so that it's not really based as much on how much you're using? Do you know what I'm trying to ask?
No, that's an excellent question. But when you look at your overall revenue requirements, by the time we get to the final phase, are going to be about $17 million. And the amount that is related to power and chemicals, let me pull out the number here, because we do have it. Yep. Purchase power and utilities is about $700,000 per year. Chemicals are about $320,000 a year. So about $1 million of our $17.5 million projected total revenue requirement would be a variable expense. But when you boil that down for the minor amounts of flows that come from a individual residence, it's nominal. You have to provide 310 gallons per day for every house. They all have the same size connection, 5/8 or 3/4 inch water meters. That's what dictates the peak flow into the collection system. And collection system's designed for peak flows. And, you know, if they have that size of meter, they have that capability of putting in that amount of peak flow. The difference between 2,000 gallon a month user and 6,000 gallon a month user is pennies. It's pennies. And
Thank you so much.
yeah.
So let me say it this way. So you might have 2 people in your house and your neighbor might have 20, but you might have more parties. So you have more people coming to your house than they do in the long run. You know, we don't want to time, yeah, exactly. You might have a bunch of teenagers that take 45-minute showers.
There's something to be said for, I think, equity. You know, as you mentioned, if I'm looking to live in a community, whether I'm a high-end earner, middle, or you know, not doing so well financially, it's good to know what it's going to be from the start rather than something unpredictable. I think that wanting to charge based on those different factors, I think it makes a lot of sense to an individual if you're the sort of person who knows that you don't have a lot of parties or don't have a lot of kids. But for most families, for most people, you don't necessarily know it's going to save you money. So a flat rate makes sure that you all know what you're getting out of it. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, another example is, I just filled my pool. I got a brand-new pool. I spent $200 from the water company. So I'm going to get a larger sewage bill because I filled a pool? If you're going off your meter for your water, that's what's going to happen.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to clarify that for him.
So, Buzz, I do have a question for you, and it has to do with a concern that I have about, not so much a concern about an increase, but I can't stress, like when I ran for mayor last year, I wasn't like, oh man, I sure hope we got to do an increase in something when I was mayor. That wasn't my hope whatsoever. And as you did your study, I'm like, I hope that, you know, Buzz finds out something, you know, that means we don't have to. I get where we are now. I get the need. But I think my question really is, and it's not to, we have a lot of people that want to move to Portage, and it's been really neat. I won't go too into that because that's more politician speak, the number of people who have moved away and want to come back, or the number of people who are moving here for a number of reasons. One of the concerns I have is the growth when it comes to the installation of new sewers. We've got people trying to build new neighborhoods in our city. It's not all bad, but when it comes to this rate increase, even if we had no home growth, we're going to, but even if we had no home growth at all for some reason, we have these maintenance and repair upgrade needs in our city for the people who live here now. My concern as a ratepayer, as a residential ratepayer, is that if I'm paying an increase, I want to know that this increase is improving my sewer, not going to somebody else's brand new sewer. That's not to insult or knock anybody moving to the city, but I think that it's important that we're not just paying to keep growing when we need to be paying to repair. So I used a term when I met you, and I'm not going to say it, but I don't remember if I'm saying the right one. What would it be for us to come up with a system development fee?
Yeah,
to make it so that we can complement this? Because like I say, I think it's a very big deal, and I know I've felt it over the last week and a half and before, but social media got more active about people saying, well, what about all this home growth? Can't you just stop that and we'll be fine? Well, we can't just stop the home growth and expect that we don't need the repairs to our current sewer, because quite frankly, Portage was a smaller city not that long ago. We're a pretty young city, you know. We've grown, we need to catch up with where we are. What does it mean to do a system development fee that we would put on some new homes as they come in so that new neighborhoods are paying for themselves when it comes to sewer, and any fee increase being paid by a resident is going to improve that resident's quality of life, their sewer system, and simply put, your ability for the toilet to flush?
First of all, growth of your customer base creates economies of scale going forward, particularly helping to pay down bond issues and so forth. And system development charges are, you know, an essential, you know, most of the communities that experience significant growth have to have system development charges, and there's a couple ways of looking at that. One way is to look at the equity that everybody else has put into the system over the, how many years since 1972? You've got about, well, with the recent project, you'll have about a $90 million investment, and with this proposed project, it'll be over $120 million. You do have about with this new loan, you'll have about 50% of that will be funded by debt, and the other 50% is equity. And you could conceivably justify an equity buy-in system development charge of up to, $3,500 to $4,500 per home. I don't know that you want to come right out of the box with that. You don't want to deter growth, but I think somewhere in the $2,500 to $3,000 range would be easily defensible, and developers, I think, understand that every time you add a new customer, you're going to have to replace that 310 gallons per day of capacity at the treatment plant. It costs at least $10 per gallon per day to add new capacity to replace what you're giving up. So, somewhere around $3,100 is an easy number to justify on an incremental cost basis. So I think I'm very much a proponent of system development charges, and I think that would be something that we've talked about. We didn't want to necessarily throw that in at this point, but I think that would be a logical consideration for the city to give going forward. It doesn't affect any existing ratepayer. It just is new customers coming into the city, buying in a little bit to the equity that the others have built up, plus at least covering the cost of replacing that 310 gallons per day of capacity at some point going forward.
If I could compare that to something for anybody watching or anybody here, and I appreciate you guys for sticking with us. This is a pretty important topic. If you're familiar with, if you've built your home here in Portage, you paid a park impact fee, which I believe at one point was like 900 something, and then it grew. At this point, that's its own story, but essentially the park impact fee is one example of that sort of thing where somebody, I remember 5 years ago, they were talking about raising the park impact fee, and we had a number of residents who said, wait a second, I don't want that to go up. And then they realized, oh no, if you already own your house and you're not building a house, you're not going to pay it.
Right.
So it's a fee or a charge, a system development charge for sanitary would be something that we would put on a new home when it's constructed so that it goes into offset, build up that money that we need. I think my question, Buzz, is legally speaking, how long does it take to put together what an amount that should be and be able to pass it? Is that a long process, short process, kind of in between?
We have some pretty good ballpark numbers for both of those techniques right now, and they are generally accepted utility rate-making principles, and I think you could over-justify, if you put in place a $2,500 or $3,000 system development charge per new home or equivalent dwelling unit coming in, that would be an easily defensible proposition. And
so I think what I'm wondering, and I don't envy the city council, but at the same time, I've really appreciated from the moment that Liz and I came in, and Liz, I don't exactly remember what day it was, but I think it was early on, you really brought this need up to me about the fact that we were going to run into some issues with the sewer. And I said, well, that can't quite be right. Let's talk to Tracy. And Tracy not only agreed with Liz, but also was able to articulate it. Then I met Buzz. This has been a process for me, and I appreciate your leadership, on this, Liz, getting us to where we got to. I'm happy to pick it up and advocate for it now. Speaking as a resident, though, speaking as a ratepayer, I think for me what I'm really looking at is two spots here. The need to do a rate increase to be able to cover what needs to be done, but also that way to ensure that the improvements are coming for people who are already living in the city, and that future improvements or additions are paid for by the growth itself. I know that we've got a lot that's been said at this meeting, and of course if anyone's got more to say they can, but I think what I'm wondering is, would we be willing to do, well, I guess to start, have a special meeting still in August and very soon for us to be able to come back. We can invite the public again, gives us time to share information about what's come out here, all together. But at that same meeting, could we prepare a proposal for a system development charge to cover these incoming new homes that might get built in our city so that they're paying for themselves. I think the idea of passing them more or less simultaneously, I would probably, as a voter or as a resident, want to see the system development charge pass first so that I know that, my thing will come after that other spot is secure. I think my question, though, would be with the rate increase. I think that we all, on some level, understand that going $12 up, within a month is very sharp and can lead to trouble for obvious reasons. What do you recommend as an alternative to the $12 and then the $4 if we're talking about a need for some sort of increase?
Yeah, we talked about this, prior to the meeting, and we actually ran an alternative rate schedule that would phase in the Phase 2 rate half and half instead of doing 75-25 like on the table right now, that might be a palatable alternative and lessen the burden, coming out of the box. And yes, I think we could come up with a proposal for that system development charge if we want to incorporate it in the final version. It's a rate that no existing ratepayer has to pay. We may want to provide the developers a little bit of a phase-in period to plan for that, because some of your projects are already ongoing, and if they're already got their building permit.
My phone's on mute, but it could be ringing right now for all I know.
But I think developers understand that, and somewhere in a 2,500 to 3,000 gallon or dollar per EDU or equivalent dwelling unit, I think would be a very palatable system development charge.
I do have a couple of things to say, just for point of clarification, especially from residents in my district that were asking if it was going to impact them as well if they were on septic. And just to be clear, only if you have a sewer and you are a user, this rate increase would impact you. But if you are on a septic, you will not see any increase on your bill. It's not being carte blanche across the board for every resident. It's only for those users, correct?
Yeah, I think there's a federal law about if you're 300 feet of a sewer, you may be able to continue your septic until it fails, but then you're going to be, required to connect to the sewer system. So perhaps there'd be some leniency on applying that system development charge to people, because you want to get them off septic, was that kind of where you were pointed?
Right.
But
And
yeah, if they're on septic now, they don't get a sewer bill at all. But if at some point their septic fails, that may be a situation that, theoretically, they should probably be treated like a new developer, but realistically, that might be a grandfather situation that could be incorporated into the verbiage in the system development charge if we decide to add that to the rate ordinance.
And also, there wouldn't be anything to prevent us in this Phase 1 example that you have here if we changed it to more of a lesser amount, say, instead of the whole $16 at the beginning, more of 0.25% being like $4 something now. Oh, okay. Okay.
That's what Buzz was saying. He's got his proposal to go lower, and that's what he recommends there. But you can keep going, but that's what he's handing out.
So this probably coincides with what I was going to say, where it's less of a sticker shock per se, since it does seem that we have done our due diligence, as Clerk Treasurer Modesto has indicated, to notify our public. So rather than a jump at $16 to ease the residents in at, say, a $4 rate, and then again at a $12, which gives them another 4 months or so before they see that, and they see that gradual increase. If they then are wanting to know more information, they can call and find out, even though they've been notified as well. Is that what I am to understand?
Well, we could make anything work as long as we get to that $53 threshold in Phase 2. I was going to suggest that maybe instead of do 2 even increases, you know, $8.25 and then another $8.25 for Phase 2. We still get to that Phase 2 in the first quarter of '25, but
Well,
you know,
I'm just looking
whatever
at
any-
it as, I'm just looking at it like in a calendar year for a family. We know it's August, they just started going back to school. We know we have holidays coming around the corner, so we don't really want to add a big sticker shock, you know, right away in this year. So something that's a little bit lower, that's able to ease them, and also to bring curiosity, that if in the event they have questions, they then contact the clerk treasurer's office. And then that they're able to prepare for that jump in January where they now know. They've been informed, they see that gradual increase come in. From what I understand also, we have roughly about over 11,000 users who are being invoiced who are going to be impacted with this increase. And we have the I'll say urgency a little loosely with the SRF funds of 31 million. So basically with all the other municipalities who did not receive funding, with those 11,000 users, the state has pretty much found confidence in us that we would be wise in using that 31 million, which they're basically giving like the 11,000 users a little over $2,800 free if we meet these conditions of having our rates to the level that they need to be in order to receive that 31 million.
Well, it's not free because we have to pay it back, but we get a below-market interest rate on,
Didn't have that at all, that would be that much more money
Yeah.
that our residents would be paying some way, somehow, whether
Right.
it was through
The
these
interest
user
rates would
fees
be
or interest or
higher and-
anywhere
yeah.
else, we would be having to come up with that much more money than
Correct.
what we're able to receive right now.
correct.
It sounds like, did you pass that paper down? It sounds like everybody would like to see well, let me try that this way. It seems that nobody thinks it's a good idea to go from 3650 now to just jump
To 49.
or to jump to 53 in January. We need to have some sort of spot where we can get to between now and January that's like your first jump and then your second jump.
Right.
So if I heard Victoria, you're saying that you'd like to see a 4 and then a 12. So basically get us to 40 and then get us to 53. Is that right?
Right.
I think that that's still, well, and I think to Buzz's point, he's saying half and half is what he recommends, because an $8 increase, again, it's hard to say what's small for any given person, but then another $8, it's not as much of a jump in January. Is that what you're saying, Buzz?
Yes.
Well, I'm also looking at it if people are saying from the audience that nobody knows about it, but yet we do know that due diligence was made for notifying
Well, and I
the
think I
public
can't add,
too.
I can't add enough. We can't claim that nobody knows about it. We've had emails, we've had
I was saying
messages.
other
and-
people were saying that that the residents don't know.
Oh, no, I'm telling you, I've talked to, if not dozens of residents about it. There's plenty that know about
No,
it, but yes.
What I'm saying is that others in the audience have stressed that our residents don't know about this increase, even though we have made notification that this is happening. So by having a smaller increase now at $4 will bring curiosity that if questions need to come up, then the clerk treasurer or Tracy or anyone else can address those now before January comes, because now you just gave them 4 more months and
That's
now they get
the
a sticker shock.
entire purpose of doing some sort of gradual this year is exactly it. You want to have
Right.
some amount that goes up so that that person who, no matter what we do, isn't going to know till they see their bill.
Right.
They see their bill when it's a little up so that they call in and find
Right,
out
and
what's
that's what
going
I'm
on.
saying.
I get you, yeah.
I'm more to have a little increase now, then the curiosity comes up, versus $8 in January and then another 50% later.
Well, no, we're talking, so what Buzz was saying is $8 now and then $8 in January.
See, I would be more for $4 now, so it's little, and
And-
then the $12 in January.
I think that's a good idea.
So, if I may, this has been a very thorough public hearing, probably the most thorough that I've experienced in my 5 years on the
Me
council.
too.
And it seems that, right, there are a number of issues that perhaps still need to be ironed out, and now that the public, including the 10 to 20 people who are watching on Facebook, are aware, now, hopefully that number can grow, awareness can be increased, and having said that, I'll make a motion to table this proposal to the next meeting, whatever that may be, whether it's a special meeting or a next regularly scheduled meeting, in order to allow the taxpayers to process this info and allow the council members to process this info. Thank you. Do I have a second?
We have a motion. Is there a second?
A second.
If I could add, I'm not sure what the mayor's role is to add, just some advice. I don't recommend tabling it where what that means is what's on the table at the next meeting, at a special meeting, is a $12 increase. Because right now what's going to happen is we'll close this meeting and what's tabled is our people's rates going to go up in September by $12. So I think that there's something to be said for maybe changing what the motion is so that if we set a special meeting that we know it's going to be lower than 12, if everybody agrees that it should be lower than 12. Even if you change it later at that meeting.
Ferdinand, do you want to amend your motion so that
I
it's
do not. I
lower?
appreciate it, yeah, but I do not. I leave the motion as motioned. Thank you.
So for clarification, you're wanting to table this so that at the special meeting, the jump would be $12 in September?
Would the amount to be negotiated or to be discussed be changed at the next meeting? Would it be able to? I guess, Mr. Buzz, that would be a question for you, or?
I'll look at
Mr.
Mr.
Mayor?
Graham, but I think so, yeah. I think you can,
We can change it at
think
any
you can
time,
change
but
it
I
prior
think
to the
that
adoption.
there's going to be people who leave this meeting, I think, concerned that it could still be 12. I think if there is a general agreement that it should be lower than 12, my recommendation is to go lower than 12 at this meeting. If we know for sure, or we're very confident it's not going to be 12, even if you guys go lower and then decide to go a little higher or decide to go even lower, I think you're better off letting the public be aware that it doesn't seem like anybody in this meeting wants it to be 12 in September.
I will affirm my motion that has been previously made. I think more input as to the amount is not, or would be helpful. Thank you.
So right now, we have a motion to table it at the $12 increase, followed by the 53 and as scheduled. Is there a second?
And Mayor, to the extent that this is going to be tabled, I would recommend that a date be set for the next meeting for taking up this topic.
You need a second to the motion before you table it.
Absolutely.
Can we table it with the options of the different?
You guys can do anything. I think what's challenging is that right now, we have a proposal to increase it by $12 in September. And I know you can change it, but we can change it today. You can change it today and then still table it. What I'm recommending is you change it to something lower that's reasonable. Might not be the final.
I make a
but-
motion to change the increase from $12 to $4 increase in September and table that.
So is that an amendment to the motion, or?
It's a
as-
second motion.
As the chair
So-
called for a second, if the
So there-
second is not forthcoming, then that motion fails.
So yeah, doesn't sound like we have a second to Councilman Alvarez's motion, so unless we have one, I think that dies on the floor. So Penny, you have a different motion?
Yes, I make a motion to amend the $12 to $4 and table that for the next special meeting.
So
Second.
we have a motion, we have a second. Can I ask something for clarity, or is that allowed for me to ask? Are you saying that from a rate perspective then, going from $36.50, you're talking about raising it to $40.50? And then having it kicked to 53 in January? Okay. So that has a motion, and that had a second. Was that Victoria? Yes. Okay. Any other discussion on that? Liz, I'm going to ask if you call roll for that vote.
Sure.
Mayor, and what will the hearing date be for taking this matter up?
First.
We need to amend it first, and we haven't actually, oh, I see what you're saying, because we need to table it to a meeting?
Yes.
Okay, so does the motion need to include a meeting date?
Yes, because at this time, there's only a general reference to a special meeting date, which has not been identified.
Yes, I make a motion.
Yes.
So can we have the motion restated? And Penny, do you want to?
I make a motion to amend the $12 to $4 and table this motion to the next special meeting on Tuesday, August 13th at 6:30 PM.
Second.
So just a brief question. Who says that the increase has to be made today? Will a 1 month or 2 month, I understand that the eventual getting to the phase 2 and the January 1st and the eventual was it $53 threshold? But the.
No one's saying that it
I'm
has
having-
to be.
Yeah, and for the record, I'd just like to.
And I just want to assure you, I think, Ferdinand, you and I have the same concerns we all do. No one is saying it has to be today or next week. I think that really that what Buzz has proposed, what was in the original proposal, as stated, that is the most scientific, just bare knuckles, no thoughts for, and I don't mean to say that Buzz has no thoughts. What I mean to say, I'm sure it's just to say that his job as a consultant is to propose the quickest way that gets us to the financial threshold. It's the council as the fiscal body to advocate for, again, if you think of it like ripping off a Band-Aid, Buzz's job is always to propose ripping the Band-Aid off the fastest way. You guys are, and I'm not questioning anybody's parenting skills, it's just to say as the council, what you guys are discussing, and you're discussing well, is should that Band-Aid be ripped off a little slower? But then we're also asking Buzz, basically, how slow is too slow? So I think that to the purpose there, and I hope that you don't misunderstand me with my recommendation, it's just really clear that I don't think anybody thinks it should be $12. So lowering it in this meeting is what I would recommend, even if it ends up changing in the next meeting, just so that we know that there's a general agreement we're not at 12. And it seems that financially, and Buzz, can you back me up, or just correct me, or what have you? I don't even back up like I'm saying it, right? You're saying that really it needs to be 53 by 2025, is what we do know.
That's the bottom line, yeah. Because that gets us to our 127% coverage ratio.
I just wanted to affirm, or just to reiterate for the record my opposition to any increase being made tonight, and that's all. Thank you.
I think we're all there, absolutely. We have a motion and a second when it comes to tabling this, but tabling it at $4 and then the 12, so going from 36.5 to 40.5, and then getting it to 53 in January. That's not going into effect, but the motion's been, so the proposal's been amended to that, but there's now a motion to continue it to next week on the 13th at 6:30 for a special meeting.
I have a conflict that night. Do you need me here for that?
Yeah, we'll be okay with the information you've provided. I think we'll be okay.
I can send Brandon up here. Oh, you do? I've got to be in Oakland City that night, but.
I think simply put, the information that you've given for us on the study, it's available.
This really has been a terrific public hearing, and I commend all of you and the people that spoke as well.
Simply put, and I know we got to vote, so just to be clear, this vote is to not take action tonight, and I think that, I'm just going to guess, nobody wants to take action tonight, including me. It's just a matter of we got to get the information out. We have to have this public hearing in one spot in an orderly way, and then we take some time to get it out there, study this, and make a decision on the right thing to do by next week. Liz, if you're ready to call roll.
Just a reminder, the public meeting's over with, so you don't have to have a public meeting next Tuesday.
That's legally correct, yes. to say we can take questions from people if we want or things like that, but that's up to the council. But anyway, let's go ahead with the roll call.
Councilperson Alvarez.
No.
Councilperson Weidenbach.
Yes.
Councilperson Geishurst.
Yes.
Councilperson Parnell.
Yes.
Councilperson Vasquez.
Yes.
Councilperson Ambler.
Yes.
The motion passed to have a council meeting next Tuesday to discuss further the rate increase.
And that's at the adjusted rate proposal. Yes. All right. Well, with all of that, we're not quite done with the meeting. I'm sorry if anybody's like, okay, now we can go. I got to turn this back over to our agenda, if I can find the agenda. I cannot stress enough how much I appreciate all of you guys for everything that you put into this. This stuff is not easy. And now that we've gotten to this point, I can just say, if there is a lesson here, it's a lesson about not kicking a can down a road. Quite frankly, as Mr. Crone noted, 8 years is a very long time to not be making a meaningful increase. There's a standpoint of wanting to keep a cost low for everybody, but there's actually a point where you keep something so low for so long that people expect it without having any reason to really think about what are the costs that we're putting off that are going to have to be paid later. Anyone who's ever brought up the issue of what are we putting on the future? Well, in this matter with the sanitary, here we are now in the future dealing with things that have been put off for some time. That's not any statement against any people. There's always reasons why things happen. It's just to say, I think the biggest thing from this is that we got to remember going forward, and it's tough because everyone can say this every time, we got to remember not to put this off for long. For however long we're mayor or on the council, we cannot go another 8 years not talking about this after we figure out what to do. We have reports from city officials. Mr. Reeder, I just want to know if you needed to come up and say anything.
I just have one thing. Just for sanitation, we have reorganized our bulk pickup. So starting in October, you could go onto our city website. We have a calendar uploaded and all the schedule fees and everything. So if you want to go to our website, that's www.portagein.gov, and go to the very bottom, says Street and Sanitation Department, and then click on that, and it'll bring up a whole new screen. On the green side, click on bulk items. The form for scheduling bulk items, and the calendar is up there for future. And we also have the 2025 schedule as well. So that's all I have. Any questions?
I could just say, I know I was given some info, Randy, on work that was done when it came to limbs and leaves and all that, everything that was going to the compost site. Your guys did a great job getting that taken care of too.
All right. Okay. That's it.
All right.
Any questions?
So we do have petitions, remonstrances, and public input. I know that we just had a public hearing, but if anybody would like to come and say anything about anything else, or a review of how this went, that's okay too. But the floor is open if you'd like to come up and speak for about 2 minutes. Oh, Mr. Helmick? Hearing no remonstrators or public input, are there any matters that else need to come before the council? Hearing none, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Vote, sorry. And we're good.